Suddenly, the blonde-haired lady, revealed to be the main character, remembered everything from her past life, realizing that this world was an otome game she had played. The lady was abruptly pulled back to the present moment as a handsome male attendant, Addie, asked if something was wrong, noting that the entrance ceremony was over. The main character was immediately consumed by the dreadful realization that her new identity was the villainess, Mary, a role that meant her entire family would fall into ruin. A shift in perspective showed Mary standing alongside the attendant, embracing her new destiny as the villainess of the otome game, a popular web novel that was now starting its comic serialization. Mary recognized the defining trait of the villainess as her tightly curled silver ringlets, confidently stating that the beautiful, smiling woman in the panel was undoubtedly her. She lamented the countless beauticians who had been defeated by her sturdy drills of hair, realizing why her curls would never straighten no matter the time or technique applied, with the text even mimicking the sound of the thick, coiling hair. She concluded that the real, most pressing concern was not her impossible hair, but the impending ending awaiting her as the villainous Mary. Mary, facing the potential for a headlong ruin if things continued as they were, decided she might as well positively face her ruin, a conclusion the attendant, Addie, questioned as being illogical. Addie addressed Mary with concern, saying that he still did not believe her outlandish claim that this world was a game from her past life. He flatly stated that he did not believe her at all, but she acknowledged his doubt, recognizing that she had just declared the unbelievable without hesitation. Mary maintained her conviction that this was certainly an otome game world, telling Addie that she didn't blame him for doubting her story. To prove her identity, Mary challenged the attendant to ask her name and he did, to which she promptly replied, Mary Albert. Addie, shocked by her instantaneous and precise response, then tested her further, asking what the Albert house was known for, and Mary quickly responded with, mainly diplomacy, adding extra details about her being the beautiful daughter of the Duke and a third-year senior division student of Corellia Academy, leading the attendant to exclaim that those were details he hadn't even asked for. Addie was still not entirely convinced, noting that anyone could answer those generic facts, and he moved on to the next question, what is your goal this year? Mary instantly and loudly declared her goal was to have her rude attendant who doubts me and besieges me with questions fired already, a goal she admitted she had held for years. The attendant could only smile, asking if she had truly been saying that for a long time, as Mary stood in a huff. Addie chuckled, stating that now he saw the true Lady Mary he knew, while Mary muttered to herself that she supposed it was about time she dealt with him seriously. Addie explained he had initially assumed that the memories from her past life had made her a different person, even thinking she had gone crazy from the weight of her drills, an insult that Mary sharply rebuffed. He then relented, stating that if she insisted, he would believe her, conceding that her story had been incredibly unbelievable for him. Addie then asked the fundamental question, even though she knew it would lead to her ruin, why would she still play the villainous role? Mary simply began her answer with a determined, well. She affirmed her decision, stating simply, that's the way things are. Mary enthusiastically declared that since she was born to the Albert house, taking the ruin course was only reasonable, and she was diving into that bottomless swamp, leaving the attendant to sigh that he had nothing more to say. Addie, moving past her decision, then asked what the game title was, and Mary recited the long, embarrassing title, Doki Doki Love Academy, The Maiden in Love and the Prince from Her Memories, which she shortened to EDI, for short, a title the attendant could not believe she said without cringing. The attendant became embarrassed when Mary recognized the title of a porn mag he was reading, which she thought was a way better title than the game's. He frantically explained that he had opened the wrong book, one that she had returned to him, and a wet love scene had barged into his field of vision, leading him to plead for her not to just enter his room. The attendant, physically distressed by the embarrassing scene, crouched on the floor, while Mary watched him, slightly shocked by his reaction. After recovering, Mary confirmed the ruinous plan. She would corner the protagonist and receive her retaliation, which would inevitably lead to her ruin, a prospect she was determined to see through. The attendant resigned himself to her decision and declared that he will accompany her, though he still failed to comprehend why she would run backwards at full speed. Mary, with a triumphant cheer, accepted his offer, exclaiming, "Ruin course, here we go," and stating that the one to have the last laugh won't be me. Mary and Addie were seen peeking around a corner, starting their investigation of the protagonist. Mary urged Addie to take the time to watch the protagonist, noting that the other students had already left and that the girl should be passing by soon, confirming she saw the same scene in the opening movie of the game that never changes. The protagonist, a girl with long, flowing hair described as silky, appeared. Mary smiled with a playful look as Addie cautiously commented, "So that's her," while the girl, carrying a large bag with wheels, looked around her surroundings. Mary, commenting on the protagonist's blonde hair and purple eyes, declared that the striking color was proof of royalty, while Addie noted that the protagonist, Alicia, was described as an ordinary girl in the game's character setting, which was to be expected from an Otome game. Mary was annoyed, demanding Addie not to spoil the truth that was meant to be revealed in the ending, and chastised him for not realizing until the end that Alicia's appearance looks just like the Queen. With a mischievous, "Okay," Mary decided it was time to move on and introduce themselves to Alicia. Mary declared their objective was to perfectly show the girl who would be leading a school life filled with love events exactly who the enemy is. Mary approached Alicia with a flourish and a commanding smile, introducing herself as Mary from the Albert House, while a nervous Alicia asked if Mary was also a student there. Alicia gasped in surprise, recognizing the Albert name, and Mary condescendingly remarked that Alicia's failure to introduce herself first shows the difference in their upbringing, though she didn't blame Alicia for not recognizing her since they lived in different worlds. Mary haughtily stated that she wouldn't make friends with a commoner and that Alicia was simply a student starting at Corellia Academy today, leading Alicia to meekly introduce herself. Mary dismissively scoffed, saying, "Don't make me laugh." Alicia apologized, feeling that she had spoken to Mary as if they were friends, but then nervously asked if Mary could point her in the direction of the student dormitory reception. Mary was silently stunned by the request, prompting Addie to ask her, "Where should I go?" Addie quickly corrected Alicia, telling the confused girl that the direction she was going leads to the cafeteria. Mary gave Alicia complicated, rapid-fire directions to the dormitory office in the second building, then scoffed at Alicia for walking around without knowing the place, asking if she was directionally challenged. Mary added a cruel warning that the teachers would be leaving early that day and that even if Alicia hurried, she might not be able to make it. Alicia thanked Mary profusely with a bright smile, rushing off quickly but immediately tripping over herself. Addie asked Mary if she thought her recent behavior had been villain-like, but Mary simply replied that Addie had been just kind to Alicia. The scene shifted to the next day, lunch break, where Mary told Addie she had just remembered that the previous encounter was a routine event for Mary in Hill. Mary sighed, realizing that her villainous persona in the game treated even nobles as lower than her, mostly because all the noble students were prideful and vain, with the Albert House's influence being second only to the royal families. Addie commented that Mary didn't really show off or seek expensive items, nor did she claim any of her hired chefs as her personal chef, prompting her to ask, why? Mary explained that tying down someone who makes delicious food as a personal chef is nothing but inhumane and pointless since she can already buy and eat whatever she wants, though Addie then asked what she desired the most right now. Mary's eyes narrowed with a direct and singular answer, a certain someone's letter of dismissal. Mary pressed Addie, asking if he knew anything about the constantly disappearing letters of dismissal she wrote, while a nervous Addie stammered and asked if she wanted to talk about food instead. Addie loudly insisted he hadn't the slightest idea about the disappearing letters, suggesting with an unconvincing and fantasy-filled reply that a dwarf living in her room was the one stealing them. Addie cleared his throat and firmly stated that, setting aside the letter of dismissal that didn't concern him, he wanted to know what Mary wanted to eat right now. Mary's face immediately brightened up as she loudly declared she wanted croquettes. Addie put a finger to his lips and quietly warned her not to show off by saying that, as the expensive croquettes were delicious but she simply can't have them. Mary, with Addie following, carried her own tray through the crowded cafeteria, noting that a typical villainess would have made her attendant carry the tray, but he simply told her she should have waited in her seat. Mary looked seriously at her attendant, still holding her tray, and simply said, "Even so." She complained that the cafeteria should run on the principles of fast, cheap and delicious, and that making them wait in line while the expensive food was cooked from scratch was simply not acting like a noble. Addie told Mary to be patient because they could eat delicious food here, but Mary insisted she was Mary Albert and that she could eat any of the items on the menu anytime she wanted at home. Mary then turned to Addie, saying that she would never set foot in such a noisy place if it weren't for him, who wanted to come to the cafeteria. Addie then revealed the real reason he loves the cafeteria is that he won't get to eat expensive meals like this unless he comes here. Mary looked disappointed at her attendant, sighing that she was too soft on him, realizing that a master who accompanies her attendant to the cafeteria and waits in line was a living example right here. Mary's attention was suddenly caught when Addie pointed and asked if that was Alicia-chan, noticing the bag she had with her. Mary's eyes lit up, whispering to Addie, "Here's our chance." Mary remembered the game scenario where Alicia, the only student who brought a lunchbox because she didn't have money, would appear, which meant they could show off their extravagant lunch and sneer at Alicia's meager meal. Mary was ecstatic, declaring she would now show the difference between nobles and commoners and play the villainous role of showing off her meal. Mary unveiled her dish with pride, a fresh from the sea seafood bowl. Addie stared blankly at the dish and then at Mary in confused silence. Mary was disappointed when Addie stated that the seafood bowl was out of the question as a dish to show off. Addie reasoned that a seafood bowl won't do since it was a foreign dish that might be unsuitable as a lady's meal, and Alicia might not even like it. Addie then surprised Mary by claiming he felt like eating the seafood bowl now and asked her to switch trays. Mary, annoyed, pointed out that he always says he can't understand people who eat raw fish and coldly stares at her eating it, to which he simply scoffed. Addie, taking the seafood bowl, told her to take the other tray, sarcastically declaring that talking behind someone's back isn't his thing. Mary confirmed Addie was sure he wanted to switch, accepting the tray. Mary looked at him with an affectionate smile, calling him an awkward person, even though he couldn't eat the seafood, and they walked off. Addie was left with the lamb fillet steak served with foie gras, muttering that he could never thank his master enough for indulging in luxurious meals just because he had a food allowance. Mary walked up to Alicia's table and said, "Excuse me," causing Alicia to gasp. Mary, with a confident smile, asked Alicia, "May I sit next to you?" Alicia was utterly shocked but politely told Mary, "Please, take a seat." Mary looked at Alicia's lunch, noting that she had only brought her own lunch and was not eating, asking why. Alicia confessed that she had never properly learned table manners and was afraid of making a mistake with the provided silverware, clutching her hands in her lap. Mary was surprised, realizing that a commoner like Alicia in the game couldn't possibly have learned table manners, and a thought crossed her mind wondering if Alicia was this gloomy in the original game. Alicia looked up, tears welling in her eyes, after Mary's condescending remark. Addie sighed and looked at Mary with a gentle smile, calling out, "Oh geez," as Mary stared in annoyance. Mary then smiled haughtily, noting that this was all part of playing the role of the villain and that she was merely showing her how it's done. Addie looked on with a warm, approving smile. Back at the table, Addie was seen eating the seafood bowl with chopsticks, complaining that it was fishy. Addie looked at the camera with an intense, happy expression. The original Mary Albert interfered with the heroine's love and fell into ruin. Mary was sitting and talking to Addie, commenting that Otome games should present a take-your-pick situation with hot guys, and she was thinking of interfering with Alicia's love from now on. Addie was distracted, looking at a book and musing that this guy was the culprit, finding the information from Mary's past life interesting, prompting Mary to yell at him to close that book already. Addie laughed heartily, telling Mary to ignore her wrong hierarchy and to tell him what they were doing first. Addie then asked how they were going to interfere with Alicia-chan's love, wondering if she was already seeing someone, while Mary was offended that he changed the topic and reminded him that she was still the daughter of the Albert house. Mary held up 3 fingers and stated there were 3 candidates for love interests, but the one Alicia was unconsciously raising flags with and treating kindly was the student council president. Mary then presented the image of Patrick Dice, the student council president of Corellia Academy, describing him as the epitome of nobility, gifted in literary and military arts, with chiseled features, and coming from a noble family of historic lineage, noting that his route in D-Delay was the hardest to conquer due to his Ice Age tundra cold attitude. Mary noted with some praise that Alicia's progress was steady because it looked like she hadn't entered Patrick's route yet, but she seemed somewhat interested in him, and she knew he was popular even outside the academy. Addie commented that if things go on like this, there wouldn't be a problem, acknowledging Mary as expected. Addie smiled broadly, saying he was surprised that Mary had researched well about Alicia-chan. Mary was exasperated, thinking that of course she had, since Alicia profusely talks to her lately and happily tells her all sorts of stuff because she considers Mary a friend, but Mary knew she couldn't possibly tell her that. Mary pounded her fist on the table and declared, anyway, that now that they knew Alicia's situation, they would interfere with her. Mary excitedly laid out her plan. She would appear before Alicia every chance she got and interfere with her using every trick in the book, including bragging about her family and declaring herself the one perfect for Patrick, all of which she learned from the D-Day noble villainous example. Addie asked if they would be looking for Alicia first, noting that she was in town today to visit the person who helped her transfer. Mary was overjoyed, screaming that she didn't even have to look for Alicia because she had invited Mary to come with her. Mary then remembered the event she needed, realizing she was looking for a pivotal game event that happened in town. Mary remembered the event where Alicia sees Patrick and me in a carriage interacting cordially, which would make her worry and was a perfect way to interfere with her. Mary excitedly declared she would invite Patrick to town right away, believing he would come with her if she offered him a ride home to discuss something, but Addie warned her to hold on. Addie let a single word drop that made Mary stop and fall to the floor. They ride bikes to school. Mary was enraged, yelling that this fact was ridiculous and inefficient, wasting too much time, since the carriage route on the main street takes 50 minutes, but the bike only takes 15 minutes through the alley. Mary was instantly dejected, realizing she screwed up because a typical noble villainess would never ride a bike, regardless of efficiency, as a carriage is the vehicle for commoners. Addie considered if they should return to the Albert Manor and prepare a carriage to invite Patrick, or if they should simply invite him to ride a bike. Mary slammed her hand down, declaring that even though she knew he would refuse, desertion in the face of the enemy is the one thing she won't allow. Mary quickly stalked off, saying that she will make him ride a bike. Addie closed his eyes, accepting his fate, stating, "I will gather your ashes." A bike wheel zooms across a cobblestone street, marking the rapid start of the ride. The male attendant whispers with a wry smile that he never would have thought Patrick would actually agree to ride the bike, as the girl also gives a small, pleased smirk while Patrick remains stone-faced. The young man points to the custom-made bike, which has a basket and a rack, excitedly exclaiming that Patrick must be fascinated because the structure is quite different from the typical town bikes, while the girl is surprised by his enthusiasm and questions if he is sure he wants to ride, after his previous refusal. The girl and the young man watch as Patrick asks with an air of curiosity how one rides the commoner's vehicle. The young man wonders with a smile if their current action is unthinkable, worrying that the dice house might sue them, even though he had already assured the girl not to worry, while the girl focuses on their objective to show off how close she and Patrick are, questioning internally if this was the right choice, as she notes how difficult it will be to pedal with him behind her. Patrick explains that he is the one who agreed to ride and that he has been meaning to try a bike at least once, then mentions that the breeze feels nice, or so he has heard from Alicia, making the young man laugh as he notes Patrick's surprising interest, and the girl attempts to cough naturally to mask her reaction to Alicia's influence. The girl's eye fills with determination as she processes the unexpected turn of events. The girl muses, while standing near a row of townhouses, that she never expected Patrick to show interest in a commoner's vehicle, realizing this must be proof that Alicia is becoming an important person to him. The young man smiles to himself as he watches Patrick and the girl's interaction. The young man thinks that Patrick must be much more deeply in love than he was portrayed in the game. The girl's focus sharpens on a figure in the distance, finding the sight surprisingly interesting. The girl tells herself not to worry, repeating the mantra that her plan to act cordially with Patrick will work as she nervously glances around. She spots someone, noting they are so close, and wonders if the two of them will see her plan succeed in causing a misunderstanding. Shaking herself out of her doubt, the girl internally commands herself to stop thinking, firmly declaring that the plan is already in motion and that a daughter of the Albert House will see what she has started through to the end. The girl emphatically states that she will deem the outcome acceptable even if the misunderstanding is a bit wrong, believing that the sight will surely make Alicia misunderstand, and concludes that the young man, Addie, will be a noble sacrifice for this cause. The girl is shocked when Patrick suddenly spots Alicia and politely asks Addie to stop the bike, which Addie immediately complies with, braking hard and yelling, "Yes, sir." Patrick greets Alicia by wishing everyone a good day, after the bike comes to a stop. Alicia quickly walks up and grabs Patrick's sleeve, asking if something happened today since he is riding a bike, while Patrick replies with a puff of air that he figured it would serve as good exercise, making the girl realize that Alicia's words about the breeze must have piqued his interest, and that he cannot admit that in front of the heroine. The girl laughs loudly to cover her panic and confidently tells Alicia that Addie and she have an important matter to discuss for a bit, which Patrick watches with a questioning look. Alicia, smiling and seemingly oblivious to the tension, is then shown close up as she thinks to herself that Patrick and the girl are perfect for each other. The girl furiously stomps the back of Addie's foot, wincing as she declares she has one question for him, while Addie, rubbing his foot, asks his my lady to look at the other two. Addie points out with a frantic sweat that Mr. Patrick is clearly blushing due to Alicia Chan's pristine cuteness, and when the girl questions why he stopped the bike despite knowing her plan, he bows deeply in apology, trembling as he explains he cannot disobey Mr. Patrick's order due to the difference in their family status, with Patrick belonging to a prestigious noble family and his to a family of attendants. Patrick states he understands the difference in the two family circumstances but asks the bewildered Addie why he disobeyed Patrick's own direct order. Addie stares blankly at the girl, who then erupts, yelling that it is only natural for her father, the head of the Albert house, to prioritize Patrick, but she feels that Patrick should not rank higher than his own daughter, and Addie then gently suggests to the girl to cheer up and go back, as the other two are waiting. Addie gives the girl a knowing, reassuring look, asking if she is all right. The girl sighs, deciding she does not feel like getting angry anymore, but thinks that being soft on Addie like this is probably making him hopeless as she begins to walk with determined steps. As the girl walks away, she sees Patrick and Alicia happily riding the bike together, with Patrick having learned how to ride in one try, carrying Alicia on the back, and Patrick says the ride certainly serves as good exercise. Patrick leans in close to Alicia, chuckling that it is not a big deal and that riding a bike is easier compared to horseback riding. The girl is crushed by the sight, collapsing on Addie's back and lamenting that she lost both the battle and the war, and feels like she lost the gamble too, while Addie asks her to hold on to him properly. The sight is so shocking that a tiny, chibi version of the girl falls off the bike, while the life-sized Alicia is seen in the background happily hugging Patrick from behind. The girl's face is flushed as Addie asks if she is alright, to which she quietly responds, yes, while her heart pounds. The girl glares ahead with a tight clench in her jaw as Addie cautiously tries to get her attention. The girl screams in frustration, elbowing Addie and ordering him to sit still or she will throw him off, even threatening to drag him with her if he continues to move, causing Addie to flinch, asking if she is taking her anger out on him, and begs her to sit still because he will be held responsible if she falls off and would be too ashamed to face the master, but the girl demands to know if he should not feel ashamed to face her, who fell off first. The girl, in a huff, wishes Addie would just kill her, and sarcastically states she will see him in the hospital room when her father comes to visit them, while Addie, rubbing the spot where she elbowed him, weakly comments that they get along well. Patrick returns and asks what the fuss is about, then tells Alicia he will walk her to her destination, and Alicia thanks him profusely for the day. The girl sees Patrick and Alicia walking away, looking like a couple in a boxing match as she tries to stop her from following, and she realizes the depth of their relationship makes her feel like she is watching a love scene. The girl, completely dejected, stops and asks what she was even trying to do before declaring she is going home, with the story ending on the title, The Daughter of the Albert House Wishes for Ruin. A full-color image shows the girl and a red-haired male, with the girl stating she has wanted her rude attendant fired for years, and the red-haired male asking what her goal is this year, confirming she has been saying this for years. Champagne flutes are shown alongside a violinist playing at an elegant nighttime party. Mary looks out over the party and resolves to take the wind out of that girl's sails tonight. Addie proposes Mary keep her villain side in moderation so Alicia can do the same thing to her later on. Mary insists she has to be a villainess tonight and that she is quite spirited. Mary explains this party is the annual celebration for the Duke's birthday hosted by the Albert House. Mary recalls this party is a game event where the protagonist, Alicia, who has nothing to do with the party, was forcefully invited. The plan is for Mary to hurt Alicia by showing off their status difference, forcing poor Alicia to leave crying. Addie asks who Mary's escort is, but she says I don't know. Mary, dressed for the party, believes Patrick is coming and will be her escort since his love parameter should be the highest. Addie pities Mary's poor game self, imagining Mary's former self took her anger out on her attendant after the escort left her. Mary, wearing a new, revealing dress, declares she has to show that I'm a beautiful and intelligent lady with a one strong hit. Addie stammers a compliment, saying the dress looks good on you, after Mary asks what's wrong. Mary, relieved, smiles broadly, pleased that the tailored dress suits her. Mary explains the master, her father, was against the design but gave in after she wore and showed it to him. Mary laughs, telling Addie his reaction when she revealed the new dress was the funniest. Mary mentions Alicia will wear an unexpected attire, believing she wore a light pink dress. Mary notes the light pink dress is an old, out-of-fashion dress of her acquaintance and is somewhat unrefined. Addie expresses how truly unrefined the dress is, which Mary attributes to the nature of detailing, a Cinderella story where a commoner enters a world of glamour. Mary suggests that making Alicia wear a gorgeous dress would make it hard for the players to relate to her, despite the game's essence being that an ordinary girl is popular. Mary concludes that Alicia's dress is just right because a bit of unpolishedness is easier to empathize with. Alicia arrives at the party wearing a noticeably unrefined and voluminous dress and hat. Mary stares in shock, realizing the dress is exactly as expected. Mary and Addie stared in horror at Alicia, noting the ridiculous sight of her carrying a parasol at a night ball, an element of her dress that contributed to the unanimous bad reviews on Dola's release date. Addie covered his face, unable to look at her directly. Alicia, brightly smiling, offered a greeting, but her face was obscured by her giant parasol, which caused Mary's face to contort in a look of stunned disbelief. Alicia bowed, thanking Mary for the invitation, but Mary, sighing, demanded to know what in the world was shining upon her. Mary criticized the garish dress and especially the parasol since it was night right now. Alicia, apologizing, explained she could only find an old dress and asked if she had done something wrong. Mary silently screamed internally at the additional vital spots on the dress, wondering what Alicia was trying to do, while Alicia worriedly sobbed. Mary composed herself, knowing that as an aristocrat, she cannot allow this disaster in front of her, despite recognizing that since Alicia came from a countryside orphanage and a commoner background, her poor fashion sense could not be helped. Addie intervened swiftly, snapping his fingers and, with a gentle swoosh, stepping forward to tell Alicia, "Allow me, Alicia-chan." Addie untied Alicia's tightly tied ribbon around her neck, telling her it was all right to keep it loose so it would be easier for her to breathe. Addie then asked Mary what to do about Alicia's hair, and Mary instructed him to do a braid, adding that Alicia should take off that corsage herself. Addie smiled, noting that if Alicia tied the dress too tightly, she wouldn't be able to eat delicious food. Addie told Alicia to allow him to change her hair a bit, to which she nervously agreed. Alicia watched Addie intently, realizing she was staring at him. Mary looked at a mental image of the queen, recalling her own curtsy to her, noting that the queen was beautiful and intelligent, exuding noble dignity and possessing the compassion of a saint, despite nobody noticing that. She noted that aside from her purple eyes, which are the proof of royalty, the queen resembled Alicia. Mary concluded, "That's why I know." Mary determined that as long as Alicia dresses up right, even outdated clothes will look better than first-class ones because, in the end, it all depends on who wears it and how they wear it. Addie was finished with the hair, and a newly styled Alicia asked if the result was all right. Addie replied happily that the look was great and that she looked really cute. Addie turned and walked away, saying that as an attendant, he has to be capable of taking care of Milady's appearance and be ready for anything. Mary sat silently, holding her dress in her lap, prompting Addie to ask, "What?" Mary internally lamented her hair, claiming she was not equipped with alloy drills because she wanted to be and noted that her drills made her hair never disheveled. Mary became gloomy as Addie asked if her hair was curled not because she liked that hairstyle. Mary quickly shut down the topic, saying, "Let's drop this topic," before Addie could reveal that a present from Alicia's acquaintance had been brought for Mary's father. Mary's expression became more serious as she focused on the situation, thinking, "My." Alicia nervously explained that she went out of her way to prepare a gift for the head of the Albert house, but confessed she didn't have much money. Mary, with a stern expression, told Alicia that a commoner such as herself can never buy anything that would make my father happy. Addie internally observed Mary's quick switch from a fashion advisor to a villainess. Mary encouraged Alicia to go give the gift to him since she did prepare something. Alicia confessed she can't give this to him directly, noting her gift was just a small bouquet. Addie watched, internally screaming that Alicia doesn't notice Mary's sarcasm. Mary smiled, telling Alicia that her father is a magnanimous person and will never get angry at a country girl, even if she does something rude due to ignorance. She noted that the bouquet of pink and white was splendid and a reflection of who Alicia is. Mary observed that Alicia knows that the lovely bouquet pales in comparison to this dazzling place. Alicia turned to Addie, saying she needed his help, and Addie, smiling and patting her head, reassured her it would be fine, adding that the master is a kind person who will be delighted, and reminded her what the master once said. Alicia was shocked by the mention of what her father said. Addie, with a sly grin, finished the quote, "The existence of young girls is a gift in and of itself," revealing the Duke's true nature. The panel showed a smiling Addie with his thumb up, while Mary stared in horrified silence. Alicia, now inspired, quickly declared she would go give this to him. Mary collapsed on the floor, weeping and sighing, thinking she didn't want to hear something like that about her family. The next panels contained a note from the Scanlation team, featuring a panda character who introduced themselves as Lunectar, the cleaner and redrawer of this manga. Lunectar explained they were so excited about the manga that they volunteered for the Scanlation team and had read the novel. Lunectar shared that they sometimes got discouraged, thinking, So this is why it didn't get scanlated yet? Lenector concluded that Addie's flustered and smiling faces cures my exhaustion and keeps me going, and that reading comments makes this all worthwhile. A final image featured a close-up on the Queen and Mary's father, with a couple of untranslated phrases. The final image was a simple black panel with the scanlator's panda peeking out. A panda character on a laptop was feeling nervous, wondering how readers will react to the content being posted online, since it was their first time posting something like this. The panda was immediately overwhelmed with happiness and warmth, shouting that the response was a lot of encouragement and promising to do my best. Alicia offered the bouquet to the Duke, Mary's father, wishing him happy birthday, and the Duke graciously accepted and thanked her, asking if she was a friend of Mary. Alicia replied with an enthusiastic, "Yes, of course," adding that Mary is very kind to me, which caused the Duke to observe that Mary has a unique personality and state that he hoped Alicia would continue to get along with her. The Duke and Alicia stood side by side, holding the small bouquet. Mary and Addie were peeking around a doorway, watching the exchange, and Mary whispered, "Father," to which Addie confidently replied, "Yes, of course." Mary was disappointed that the Duke didn't figure out Alicia's identity even though he meets the royal family on a regular basis, believing he would notice by the color of that girl's eyes. Addie was excited, exclaiming, "That's the master for you as a magnanimous person," pointing out his kind eyes directed at Alicia-chan. Addie, still excited, asked what Mary thought, showing off his enthusiasm for the Duke, and Mary silently wished he would direct even a fraction of his loyalty towards her. Mary internally noted that with that loyalty, they would have a more perfect relationship. Mary found Addie's fawning over her 40-year-old father to be quite sickening, but insisted this was not the time to be finding fault with that. Mary worried about her father finding the thought of her having an honest friend surprising, questioning if her ruin was set in stone, but decided she must follow the game as there might be a deterrence at work. Mary was visibly shaking, forcing herself to calm down, while a playful Addie gave her a glare. Mary regained her composure, telling herself to focus, and then she called out, "Hey." Mary approached Patrick, greeting him and immediately criticizing his presence, asking if he couldn't at least keep your eccentric behavior in check at a party organized by your family. Patrick merely let out a defeated sigh. Patrick scolded Mary for heaving a sigh at a joyous party and told her he wouldn't have to if she would just behave herself, a line which Mary shrugged off. Patrick gave Mary a severe look, commanding her to leave, while Addie watched the exchange, quietly chuckling. Mary told Patrick that if he meddles again, she won't talk to you anymore. Mary mentally struggled to justify her relationship with Addie, asserting he is my attendant, yet noting he is overly familiar for a mere attendant and that she would decide how to treat him. Patrick sighed again, composing himself. Patrick told Mary that if there was a well-matched person out there for her, he would love to meet them, and he asked Addie what he thought, while Addie was hesitant, feeling Mary is too much for me to handle. Addie reluctantly agreed that such a person would have to be a great man or else he can't be the equal of Lady Mary. Patrick, leaning in, apologized and asked Mary to compromise and bear with me because her father asked me to be your escort tonight, a common line for a gentleman to use. Mary realized that Patrick really is the escort, but she immediately put a stop to her thought process and decided to put her plan into action. She noted that the Dice family has had connections with the Albert family since a very long time ago and is second to the Albert family in terms of authority, so it wouldn't be surprising for Patrick, the son, to escort her, the daughter. Mary explained that she only mentions Patrick's name because he is a partner who, with their lineage considered, people would deem suitable and whom she feels more comfortable with. She felt he was also more comfortable pairing up with her than with ladies desperately in love. Patrick was concerned if something was wrong, but Mary clenched her fist and insisted, "Nothing's wrong." Mary, with a sly smile, formally asked Patrick, "Will you do the honor of escorting me?" The sight of them together drew applause from the crowd. The crowd whispered about Mr. Patrick and Lady Mary being a perfect match. The panel showed Patrick's hand resting on Mary's waist, completing the escort arrangement. Mary decided that even though she was aiming for her ruin, she would have nothing to do with such an unsightly conduct as forcing the character with the highest love parameter for Alicia to be her escort. The chapter concluded with a final color illustration of Mary and Addie standing together, smiling, with Patrick's hand resting on Mary's shoulder. The chapter title for this conclusion of the fourth chapter was displayed. The Duke, Addie, and other guests smiled as the party was in full swing. Alicia and Addie watched the dancing crowd, with Alicia appearing impressed. Mary, dancing gracefully with Patrick, inwardly noted that Alicia was watching the daughter of the Albert house. Mary then saw the protagonist, Alicia, watching them, realizing that her grand gesture did not seem that effective on the commoner girl, but admitting that Patrick came because his love parameter is the highest. She then turned her gaze to the other young women, mentally observing that they were merely looking from afar, making excuses to hide their unrequited feelings. Mary condemned the other women, declaring that they were ill-matched for Patrick and none of them deserve him. Mary continued to muse over Patrick Dice, calling him the embodiment of a woman's ideal man, a faultless prince whose cold personality could actually be affectionate to those who are close to him, leading all women to imagine a love story with him at least once, even herself. Mary recalled a younger Patrick, looking exactly like a storybook prince and was perfectly handsome. Despite Patrick's attractiveness and her longing for him as a prince, Mary could not picture herself standing next to him. Patrick noticed Mary's distracted state and asked what was wrong, while Mary, composing herself, wondered if there was something wrong with me. Mary responded that her contemplation was nothing, but Patrick insisted she had been acting strange since earlier, prompting Mary to stare and ask what about him. Patrick was caught staring at the audience, specifically stealing glances to look for someone, leading Mary to say the situation was the same for both of us. Mary then reflected that she didn't feel jealous in the slightest, despite being in the arms of the object of every other girl's affection. Addie came over, praising Mary's performance, declaring her poise during the dance perfect. Mary suggested she should entertain the guests, asking if Addie was referring to her dancing or how she evaded the conversation with Patrick, to which Addie replied both, and he promised to wait for her. Mary, talking to her father and Patrick's father, quietly ordered Addie to go to where Alicia is, fearing what the country bumpkin would do next. Mary covertly smiled to herself as Addie followed her order. Mary inwardly confessed that she and the other girls both have it rough as she entertained the guests, lamenting that the imaginary cats she has on me are about to escape. Mary sighed, acknowledging that she couldn't just ignore the people who went out of their way to come here for the Albert family head's father's birthday, having already danced with and greeted people countless times. Addie returned to Mary, asking what was the matter, reporting that watching my lady and Mr. Patrick dance made her want to dance too, and he requested Mary follow him. Mary looked at Alicia standing outside with Patrick, observing that Alicia still looked like a beautiful princess from a fairy tale, but Mary felt she couldn't teach her much either. Mary realized she vaguely remembered this event, recalling that Addie was summoning Patrick because he believed Alicia would become better if Patrick taught her to dance. Alicia was now dancing with Patrick under the light of a full moon, overjoyed. Patrick, ever the strict dance partner, commanded Alicia to straighten her posture and be confident and proud because ladies won't last otherwise, an intensity that made Alicia internally scream. Patrick, with Mary and Addie looking on, declared that if Alicia kept practicing, the next night ball will be filled with out-of-fashion dresses worn with confidence, suggesting Alicia might get one more time to dance. The beautiful, sparkling illustration solidified the moment as an emotional turning point. Mary realized the dramatic shaft of light indicated a CG, computer graphic event, and Addie confirmed this, declaring that seeing that is proof that she's entered Patrick's route. Mary concluded that the CG was the point, realizing that without it, the event would have simply ended with him complimenting her dress. Addie grinned widely, asserting that Mr. Patrick is a great man, and someone kind who will support him, like Alicia-chan, is perfect for him, prompting a suspicious Mary to ask, "What's that look for?" Mary's eyes narrowed, finally understanding that Addie was so insistent about someone else's love life because he was actually fond of love stories, though he maintained his position that they were a perfect match. Mary reflected that if Alicia was indeed the queen, dating her would certainly lead to the Dice family's stability, changing his stiff way of thinking. Mary nervously noted that if this course continues smoothly, Patrick and Alicia will probably end up together. Addie turned to Mary asking, "But what?" Mary, holding her dress, revealed the true, distressing complication. Before that happens, and if the world is progressing like the Otome game storyline, Patrick and I will be engaged. The chapter concluded with a marker, signifying the end of the part, leaving the question of Mary's future hanging. With a thought from Alicia after the Corellia Academy school day, "Oh no. It took so long to organize the library as Lady Mary told me to. I have to hurry home." The next scene showed a sleeping man, later revealed to be Patrick, slumped over a desk, a sad look on Mary's face, with a title card for Chapter 5 of the comic. The sleeping man was surprised when the door was pushed open and he saw Alicia, who wished him a good morning. Patrick looked up, surprised and caught off guard. Patrick gently held Alicia's hand, while the window rattled behind him. Mary was seen walking away with Patrick, announcing to Alicia, who looked on with sadness, "Lord Patrick? We are engaged." Patrick looked back at Alicia with a sorrowful expression, whispering, "Forgive me, Alicia." Alicia cried in despair, watching the couple walk away, knowing their arrangement was beyond her control in the world of nobility. Mary looked at the devastated Alicia, thinking that her jealousy got the better of you, that you gave up being a woman, a thought that Addie overheard, silently observing how nasty his my lady was. Mary quickly stated that the nasty comment was the game version Mary's doing, since the D.S. Mary Albert is a villainess who will, in any route, gladly get in the way of the heroine without fail. Mary noted that since they were acting in accordance to that story, the two of you will get engaged, admitting that she pitted Alicia more than she hated her because they were in the same situation. Mary confirmed that the engagement event happens right after the night ball event, and she won't be surprised if they bring that up anytime soon. Addie, chewing thoughtfully, asked Mary directly, "You don't want to marry Lord Patrick, do you?" Mary's eyes narrowed, insisting that she haven't the slightest desire to marry him at all, and harshly warned Addie to never speak those words somewhere else. Mary was deep in thought, remembering that the game version my lady forcefully set about to arrange the engagement. Addie proposed that they won't follow the story as long as you don't do anything to arrange the engagement. Addie suggested that if Mary didn't have any desire to marry Patrick, she doesn't have to force yourself to do something, and nobody will condemn you. Mary, however, felt like it's all going to go according to the game no matter what, unconsciously playing with her thick, curled hair as she spoke. Addie pointed out that since her impossible drills still existed despite all efforts, considering the hair's power, there seems to be some sort of force at work, a concept Mary grudgingly accepted. Mary realized that even though she was living in this world, days passed similar to and that the marriage event was inevitable. Mary asked Addie to hold on for a moment, asking if the heads of the respective families will bring up the engagement at this timing, even if I don't make a move. Mary explained that the Albert House and the Dice House are both of impeccable lineage, and since they have a daughter and a son around the same age, there is no better chance for a political marriage to strengthen the family's ties. Mary noted that she also has a pleasant relationship with Patrick, and they even look perfect as a couple. Addie looked at Mary, realizing, could it be that you've been willing to marry Lord Patrick for a long time now? Mary simply stared back at Addie in silence. Mary confirmed that the two families will probably make me marry, and that Patrick is the better choice compared to marrying someone she didn't know well, asserting that Patrick is a trusted friend. Addie, having overheard the parents' discussions, sadly admitted, I knew it. A few days later, Mary and Patrick were engaged just as I expected, and the news immediately spread around the high society, becoming the talk of Corellia Academy. After school, Mary was exhausted, thinking, I'm done. I resent you, father, while Addie watched her, asking if she was already used to the flames of jealousy and calculated ass-kissing. Addie noted that the other students would normally leave Mary alone because they thought she was weird, but now that she was engaged to Lord Patrick, they had a reason to approach her. Mary, walking with Addie, acknowledged the strange situation of being rejected by a man you don't even like, anticipating that the game version Mary was rejected in an awful way and wondering what rejection was going to be for me. Mary commented that she already knows what's going to happen and that it's not going to hurt me at this point, a carefree attitude Addie noted. Mary suggested that Addie was wrong because Alicia-chan might choose to step aside because she and Patrick are of unequal social rank, but Addie insisted that was impossible because Patrick doesn't care about that since they are mutually in love. Addie insisted that Patrick himself is fine with it, leading him to think she will step aside. Mary, shaking Addie in frustration, explained her view, even if you love them from the bottom of your heart. That's exactly why you can't possibly stand having them drop down to your level. Mary, thinking of Alicia's potential choice, said that if Patrick and Alicia chose each other, they could be with someone equal to them in terms of lifestyle, elegance, lineage. This could be a path of happiness that anyone would bless. Mary confessed, I can't help but wish for them to walk on a path of happiness, clutching her fist in empathy. Addie saw Alicia approaching from down the hall and Mary, shocked, asked, Addie, what's wrong? A panicked Addie shouted, someone I know fell for someone of a different social rank and then, before yelling, and running off. Addie ran down the hall to buy a drink, leaving Alicia standing alone. Mary was surprised by Addie's erratic behavior, asking how she should talk to him when he gets back, as Alicia walked to the classroom. Patrick appeared, saying he was sorry to call you here, and Alicia was jolted by his presence. Mary was ready for the rejection, noting her eyes were red but saying she came here to be rejected anyway, while Patrick acknowledged that she figured it out. Alicia suddenly appeared, yelling, "Lady Mary," and pleading with Patrick. "Still, but, Alicia, I already told you." Alicia, cutting off Patrick's attempt to speak, insisted that Mary should choose a marriage that anyone will bless. Mary realized that Alicia's thought she said the same thing mirrored her own desire for Alicia's happiness. Patrick was perplexed as Mary dramatically entered the scene and asked Alicia, "A country girl like you would give up on a man and let me have him?" Mary smiled with satisfaction, asking, "Do you seriously believe I, Mary Albert, would be happy with a country girl's hand-me-down man?" Mary claimed that Alicia's sacrifice will save me the trouble of breaking the engagement, while Patrick stepped in, saying, "Mary, the blame falls on me this time." Patrick told Mary that he don't want anything to do with a man who would fall for a country girl, and that he never my intention to make trouble for you. Patrick, pulling Alicia closer, loudly declared, "I will live together with Alicia." Mary, triumphant, smiled and asked Patrick what he would do about your parents and the D family, a noble son choosing a commoner of all people. Patrick calmly replied that he had no other choice but to convince them, didn't he? Alicia, shaking and crying, insisted, "Lord Patrick, you can't do that," as she pushed against his chest. Patrick looked down with determination, telling Alicia that if his parents still can't understand, then I will gladly renounce the Dice family name. Mary internally noted that Patrick's dignity is a result of his own efforts and talent, and that his reputation wouldn't drop just by becoming a commoner. Mary knew that for Alicia, Patrick renouncing his name would mean stealing his family name and family from him, and though it sounds wonderful, the loss would be too huge. Mary, with a triumphant smirk, asked if Alicia was perhaps after Patrick's family, knowing her words were harsh but necessary. Alicia, crying with a fierce glare, shouted at Mary, "How could you say that? The one I love is Lord Patrick." Alicia insisted that even if he loses his family name, my feelings for him won't ever change. Mary looked at Alicia with an intense, satisfied expression. Mary, walking away, told Alicia, "I don't see any problem then," asking if they wanted her to watch their lovers spat. Mary firmly told Alicia to stop because the conversation is over, shutting the door behind her. Alicia stared at the closed door in stunned silence. Addie appeared in the cafeteria, explaining that he thought it would be better to have tea at the cafeteria than simply buying a drink, prompting Mary to ask where her drink was. Mary, closing her eyes in defeat, told Addie that she was tired, and although he was obviously lying, she would let myself be deceived this time. Addie suggested that today's the day my Lady Got rejected, an idea Mary swiftly rejected, stating that Patrick and Alicia's wedding day is still a long way off. Mary, complaining that Addie had been acting strange all day, asked if his flippant attitude was how you treat a girl who was just rejected. Patrick and Alicia were seen walking together as Mary lamented, "A letdown. I swear, every single one of them." A moment of quiet elegance hangs in the air as a man with a steady, confident gaze stands beside a beautiful woman, their mutual serenity suggesting a shared, unspoken understanding. Following their pleasant time together, a tray with an empty bowl and simple chopsticks is left behind, a quiet sign of the modest meal just finished. The day shifts to a cheerful gathering around a table, where three friends enjoy a shared moment, a man standing to refill a teacup for one of the women while the others share smiles and conversation, creating a feeling of warmth. Later, settling into her new living quarters, a girl notes the considerable size of her new space, remarking that she's still not used to this much space and acknowledging that this luxury is just what you'd expect from the dormitories of Corellia Academy. Sitting at a desk, a character prepares to write, taking a moment to gather her thoughts before starting the letter. She pens her thanks for the help moving into the dormitory, introducing herself simply as Alicia and admitting that her new environment still baffles her. Alicia describes the person helping her as an extremely nice noble lady, Mary from the Albert House, who is beautiful like a doll. She recalls a recent gentle reprimand from Mary, who told her that a commoner such as yourself couldn't possibly have learned table manners. A sudden chill sweeps over the writer, making her shiver, prompting a companion to ask if she caught a cold. Deciding it's safer to retire, she tells herself she's going to sleep now, before finishing her letter with a promise to pay a visit soon and share more stories about her again. The narrative breaks for an afterword, where author Satsuki Tsukasa introduces herself, expressing her delight at the chance to say hello to everyone despite being a newcomer who has yet to publish her own manga. She mentions she was fortunate enough to receive an offer to comicalize a popular novel and adds that she likes animals. The author boldly declares her artistic ambition, "I want to draw dynamic drills." Finally, she offers special thanks to Haki-sensei for answering her many questions and explains she has taken the liberty to use SFXs like whoosh, DRR, and drill in the work. Lady Mary was sitting dejectedly on a plush sofa in a state of gloom, clutching a pillow, having just heard her father ask, "He broke off the engagement?" Mary's father, the Duke, had expressed his disappointment that his hopes of the fiancé kindly taking her in were ruined, which made Mary inwardly cringe at the condescending phrase. She quickly composed herself, thinking that this was for the best as they were actually following the storyline that dictated she fall into ruin. Later that night, someone knocked on her door, and a maid was heard saying, "Lady Mary, forgive me for bothering you at this hour." Mary was surprised by the late visit, asking, "What? Addie?" A conceptual image showed Mary and Addie happily walking together, holding hands, suggesting a close relationship. Mary carried a lantern outside, reflecting that she hadn't visited the servants' quarters in ages but used to sneak inside when she was younger because she couldn't tell the difference between the buildings. She was embarrassed, realizing she was probably just a bother to the off-duty servants who would play with her since she didn't understand the concept of a day off then. Mary looked into the servants' quarters, asking if everyone was going out today, thinking to herself how embarrassing her past behavior was, especially as she grew older and realized how different the main residence was, which is why she started limiting her visits here. Mary's father had told her to stay at home or the servants would just attend to her needs, but she saw Addie leaving and heard him explain that he let the staff have the day off because he heard there was a festival in town and they work very hard. Mary inwardly agreed with Addie's sentiment, feeling it didn't feel right to intrude on their lives and their space as the daughter of their employer. Mary was then seen being carried by Addie, and she realized that walking side by side with her attendant makes people whisper about her being a strange lady, and she realized firsthand how unpleasant it is when other people intrude on her space. Mary walked down a hall to a door with a plaque reading, "Addie," and knocked. Addie opened the door, panting and apologizing for the wait, laughing and asking what took her so long, and Mary thought with annoyance, "Of course you are." Addie invited Mary into his room, apologizing, "It's a bit messy here but please take a sit," while Mary looked around, observing that a servant of the Albert family must be provided this much space, seeing it as a wide room for one person. Mary was hesitant, thinking she wouldn't really call this messy, but she was clearly observing the room. Addie insisted Mary have a seat, spinning playfully, and offered her Darjeeling tea, while Mary was distracted by a large, covered pile, thinking that the pile that screams "shameful" is bothering her, and Addie nervously denied that there was any such thing there. Mary tried to reach for the mysterious pile, forcing Addie to command her to please behave yourself and stay seated, to which Mary replied, "Desperate much?" Mary threw a cushion on the ground with a bim and then reached under the table, touching something underneath, and then she looked at the pile, thinking, "That kind of stuff, huh?" Addie suddenly stood over her, his face intense and slightly menacing, shouting, "Your tea is ready." Addie commanded Mary to "Tea down. Kindly. Don't touch anything. And wait here. Please," as he set down the cup with a clunk. Mary sighed, lamenting that she felt like an outsider and thought she should tell him that she was in his room, not his castle, and that he should have hidden his shameful stuff prior to her visit. Mary finally sat down and asked, "So, why did you call me here?" Mary explained that when Addie wanted to discuss something, he was the one who was supposed to visit her room, shouting in annoyance that it was just audacious that he would summon her, telling him to get his priorities straight for God's sake. Mary then considered that a servant wouldn't be allowed to enter his master's room on such short notice, and that they must refrain from doing things that will cause unnecessary misunderstanding since Addie is a man and she is a woman, suggesting that he had a point. Addie frantically insisted that he couldn't possibly ask the master to spare some time for him at this hour, shouting he would never, and Mary sighed, telling him that this meant he can't just summon his master or dare pull the same thing on father because one misstep could have led to his dismissal. Mary smiled with an almost demonic grin, telling Addie to sit down and forget their earlier conversation, saying, "Let's use this opportunity to discuss the matter we've been putting off, shall we?" Addie, with a weary smile, agreed, knowing he couldn't deny her, but Mary then threatened to remove the cloth covering that pile and expose whatever is under that cushion and slap his face with her notice of dismissal if it turned out he called her here for a ridiculous reason. Mary sat back, defeated, realizing he took the wind out of her sails and the matter of his termination will be left unsettled again, thinking that as his master, this shouldn't be the way things go. Addie looked at Mary, clearing his throat, and asked her, "My lady, please answer honestly." Addie, looking directly at Mary, asked the heart of the matter, "Why are you trying to play the role of the villain?" Mary, with a powerful response, stated simply, "Simple. Because I am the Mary Albert, and that she is to carry out the role of the villain and fall into ruin because that's the part given to her," immediately rejected by Addie's definitive "no." Addie told Mary that being the villain doesn't suit her at all and that she was not the kind of person who would act because of such a simple reason, but Mary asked if he thought she was a saint, to which Addie internally retorted that the thought never crossed his mind. Mary, frustrated with his total denial, leaned forward and shouted, "Can't you have my back for once?" Mary turned away, pursing her lips in distress. Mary sighed, realizing she could usually dodge his suspicions by telling a joke or two, but she was too distraught now. Addie insisted, "Very well. I will tell you if you insist," and Mary confessed that she was never interested in the noble villainess role. Mary thought to herself that she can never become Mary and that she was very different from the game version Mary, admitting that she neither has a strong desire to harass anyone nor any interest in them. Addie, with a confident smile, stated that he can say with certainty that Mary will never play the role of the noble villainess because, even with her past life's memories and the world being a game, she is more prideful than anyone else. Addie explained that he had been watching her closer than anyone else, and that he could say with certainty that the noble villainess Mary is exactly the kind of person she hates the most. Mary returned Addie's gaze with a subtle smirk, suggesting his assessment was accurate. An isolated panel humorously showed the ladybug attack, and that it was not a drill. Another panel referenced a spiral of tragedy and the theme of the tragedy repeating itself. Another panel used a proverb, suggesting it's better to bend than to break. The Scanlator's panda was seen with untranslated text in Mary's speech bubble, stating she would never play the role of a villainess, with Addie looking on. A curious panda looked on at the scene with a question mark. The panda sweating nervously under a torrent of question marks, concluding the scene. Addie started the discussion in Chapter 7 by defining Mary's true character. She does not exploit nor show off her authority like other nobles, is never fazed by the jeers of other students, performs the tasks of servants when necessary, and rides a bike to save time. He concluded that Mary spends her days at the academy as you please, follows regulations, and keeps a low profile. Addie asserted that Mary's inherent nature, even after regaining her memories from your past life, makes it strange that you would aim to play the shameful role of the noble villainess. Mary admitted, "It's exactly as you said." Mary firmly stated she had no intention of stooping down to that uncivil woman's level, even as a means to my end. Addie paused, looking thoughtful, saying, "So then?" Addie finally asked directly, "Is your goal simply will fall into ruin?" Mary confirmed this by simply snorting, having realized she'd only declared, "I will aim for ruin," not, "I want to become a noble villainess." Addie, looking very serious, asked Mary, "Why were you aiming for ruin in the first place?" And also wondered aloud if the Albert family is too large. Mary launched into her explanation, noting that a noble's estate is a testament to that family's authority and that by spending money and maintaining this spectacular view, they display affluence and financial power. She emphasized that even the Dice family does not own an estate of this size, which is why the Albert family holds parties often and invites a great number of guests. Mary agreed that this was precisely the point Addie was making. Addie was hit with a realization that the Albert family has grown larger than it should have. Mary explained the current situation. Their influence is only second to the current royal family, and even lower-ranking members of the royal family are attempting to benefit from us by toadying to the Albert family. Mary concluded this meant they were aiming to gain equal footing with the central members of the royal family, and it was not just a matter of not allowing the other nobles to outclass us. Mary stated her intention, "I'll reduce our influence before it's too late." She warned Addie that the Albert family possesses authority that could surpass that of the royal families. Mary elaborated that while being born a noble gives them absolute superiority, only a handful do not exploit our influence. She did not believe it will be a favorable situation for the kingdom, and she personally wouldn't want an aristocracy either. Addie, shocked, asked if there a need to go through such lengths, noting that the family, serving as the representative of the nobles, will surpass the royal family at this rate. Addie pointed out that if the Albert family continues to prosper, Mary could have an even higher standard of living. Mary refuted his point, accusing him of sounding like a supremacist who would be satisfied with material wealth. Mary argued that she can have 3 meals of croquette every day even now, and she simply chooses not to exploit their standing. Addie clarified that if the family's standing rose, she won't have to deal with the jeers of other students. Mary dismissed the jeers as minor but warned, but it won't end there. Addie asked if she meant there would be more changes to come. Mary explained that once the Albert family becomes nothing more than a thorn in their side, the noble supremacists, who are only toadying to them to surpass the royal family, will turn their backs on US in a heartbeat. Mary praised her father as a talented man with the dynamism to expand his businesses overseas, noting he is second to none when it comes to elevating our family. Addie wondered, "How do you mean?" asserting there wouldn't be a problem if that's all there is to it. Mary showed Addie a rose, saying her father accepts anyone unconditionally, and he has been deceived several times as a result of that nature. Mary confirmed Addie's point that the master is a great man overflowing with generosity and compassion. Mary mocked Addie's blind devotion to her father. Mary continued her mocking by pointing out her father overlooks insolent servants, too, and lets his eccentric daughter do as she pleases. Mary and Addie sat in silence for a moment. Mary confessed that what she feared most was the Albert family will incurring the wrath of the royal family. She warned that the royal family would never overlook an insolent family attempting to surpass them and stand at the pinnacle of this kingdom. Mary estimated that if the royal family crushed them, about half will find the situation unfavorable and betray us, and those who follow her father wouldn't stand by their side. The family would have no means to fight as they are just one family. Addie, connecting the pieces, asked, "That's why you are aiming to fall into ruin before it's too late?" Mary exclaimed, "Exactly," asserting that the Albert family will fall into ruin in the game, but we won't be completely torn down. She explained they can appease their anger by returning a part of our authority to the royal family. Mary concluded that the future where the noble villainous Mary brings about our ruin is much better than suffering from the iron hammer of wrath of the royal family. She added that they still have an escape route secured, and the aftermath in the sequel fandisc showed that Mary's parents made an official apology and swore fealty to the royal family. Mary explained that falling to ruin this way is a path of return, whereas incurring the royal family's full wrath means they would never get a second chance to crawl up. Mary revealed that the original Mary's actions were merely a dispute between two ladies fighting over one man, ending with a happy ending for Alicia, so only Mary was made to atone for her sins. Addie realized, "That's why you, my lady, will take the fall." Addie confessed, "It doesn't sit right with me that you will be the only one sent to a faraway land." Mary revealed that after the trial and abandonment, the gay Mary was sent to the northern lands to live with her distant relatives, and Addie, screaming, asked, "Faraway land? What do you mean by that?" Mary looked at him with satisfaction. Addie frantically gulped down a drink. Addie recovered, asking if she meant the madam's relatives in the northern lands, to which Mary replied yes, probably. Mary claimed the northern lands were not a bad place, with thriving businesses during the bird migration season. Addie expressed concern that being banished to a place like that is just too cruel. Mary interrupted with fierce determination, declaring her intention to make a fortune for myself by opening a restaurant in the north. Mary grinned, asserting it would be a booming business for sure. Mary confidently stated that no matter where I am banished to, I will do as I please, believing she had her father's talent in business and foresight. Addie asked, sighing, "Why must you be so? You'll choose to settle down there instead of coming back." Mary, annoyed, asked if he had a problem with that, and Addie replied that calling it a problem is putting it too lightly. Addie sighed, noting the irony that they would be in the northern lands running a poultry rice bowl restaurant while Alicia was enjoying the fandisc. Mary, smiling, asked Addie if there anything strange about what I said now, after dropping the fandisc comment, which made Addie jump. Addie, in a state of panic, begged Mary to please tell me we were just not mentioned in the fandisc, fearfully asking, "Am I going to die?" Mary then revealed, "No. You have a part there." Mary looked pleased with herself. Mary dropped the final bombshell, "You have a route in the fandisc." Mary smiled triumphantly, saying, "Good for you." The chapter began by explicitly defining Addie as a non-love interest in the main story of E, a prime example of a villain's underling who was always standing behind the noble villainous Mary, turning a blind eye to all the evil things she does to the heroine. Addie, however, possessed a charm different from the other love interests which made him popular. It was understandable that a route was added for him in the fandisc, Despite him being a servant 5 years older than the heroine, as the central theme of Didiu was love that defies social status. Mary was shocked at the idea of Addie and Alicia ending up at an orphanage and asked why an orphanage of all places. Mary recounted the story's background. Before the college admissions, Alicia started to become more aware of her status as a member of the royal family, realizing how constricting and heavy a burden being a royal is. Alicia snuck out one day because she had no one to confide in and was keeping her worries bottled up. The flashback showed a young Addie laughing happily while being surrounded by children and carrying a young boy. The story moved forward to the future, with a joyful Mary telling Addie, "Congratulations on your new job," as his attendant family's long service to the Alberts ended because the Albert family fell into ruin and no longer had means to employ you. Mary, smiling, noted that the game version Addie was quite happy with the outcome. Mary explained that Addie detested Mary, his mistress, and had endured Mary's tyranny every single day because he feared for his family's safety due to their generational service to the Alberts. With the family's ruin, Addie was liberated from everything that happened with Alicia. Addie told Alicia that it's true that I lost my job as an attendant, but from now on, I want to be of service to others. The narration explained that Alicia began coming up with reasons just to see him, and the two of them eventually came together. Mary was dumbfounded and yelled, "Etcha, hold on." Mary cried, proclaiming, "It's a wonderful story." Mary was furious, demanding to know what? And why? Because there was a full reset. Mary was utterly shocked, shouting, "What's that supposed to even mean?" The image showed Mary happily giving a thumbs up and yelling "Viva Fandisk," because the story had reset back to a clean slate where the heroine never fell in love with anyone. Mary yelled that it was not a problem. All is fair in love and Fandisk. Despite the ridiculous premise of the future queen and a former servant of a ruined family. Mary noted that the formidable power of a Fandisk makes the social status conflict in the main story look cute. Mary admitted that Fandisks are made to spoil the players rotten with blatant fanservice. Mary confirmed that the Fandisk, Doki Doki Love Academy Plus, or DDLA Plus, was simply fanservice and that the higher sugar content made it easier to let a few contradictions slide. Mary then looked sad, thinking, "There's nothing strange with Addie and Alicia becoming." Mary returned to the present and was getting ready to leave Addie's room. She complimented Addie, saying, "Your route was quite popular," but then asked, looking somber, "I stayed here while you were banished to the north?" Addie replied, chuckling nervously, "You don't look well, my lady." Mary insisted, "I'm fine, thank you," and rejected his offer to escort her, saying she needed some fresh air to think. Addie politely said, "Good night," and thanked her for the black tea. Mary silently left the servants' quarters. Mary was seen holding her head and thinking, "I'm the worst." Mary realized with a jolt that she remembered everything. I remember the Fandisk. She knew that Addie and Alicia end up together in one route and nothing was mentioned about Mary the noble villainess. Mary realized the bitter truth. The Albert family ends up falling into ruin in every route. Therefore, we couldn't keep employing him. That much was obvious. Mary was shocked as she remembered the thought she had suppressed. I wouldn't mind as long as I'm with Addie. She immediately hated the thought, thinking, I hate this. It's like I'm treating him like I own him. That's exactly what Mary the noble villainess does. The next panel showed Mary standing by a door, her face determined. Mary called out, Addie, and Addie turned, starting to walk toward her. Addie immediately grabbed her, saying, I'm sorry. I want to go to bed now, and that they could discuss this tomorrow. Mary was shocked as he shut the door, but she quickly pleaded, please hear me out. Whatever my game version self chooses to do with another person. Mary insisted, has nothing to do with me. Mary looked into his eyes and declared, even if the Albert family falls into ruin, I will follow you wherever you go. Mary looked surprised at her own words. Mary smiled softly, saying, thank you, Addie. That makes me very happy. Mary then realized, looking at his hand, when did these hands grow so big and manly? I never noticed because we're almost never apart. He has always been by my side since I was born. Mary asserted their bond. We have a goal, and that is to fall into ruin. Let's keep trying hard again tomorrow. Mary smiled contentedly. Addie closed the door, saying, good night, my lady. Mary leaned against the door with a tired sigh. Mary staggered across the room to her bed. Mary collapsed into her bed. Mary lay in bed, trying to remember what she was going to say and thinking about what she had to make Alicia do tomorrow. Mary realized that the true reason for her actions was deeper, seeing a smiling Alicia and Patrick, and thinking, the story doesn't matter. Mary insisted that whatever her game version self chooses to do with another person has nothing to do with me. Mary became agitated, realizing, but what about Addie? Can I really just get him involved? Mary realized that in the ruin route I envision, Addie's there as if it's a given. Now that I noticed, in the fan disc, Addie. Mary cried out in despair, oh no, I can't think straight. Mary, distraught, screamed, what have I done? And an establishing shot show a horse-drawn carriage departing from the Albert family mansion gate, while Mary and Addie stand outside with other attendants. A sound effect of a sigh accompanies a close-up of a lone bicycle wheel leaning against a brick wall, signaling the weary state of Mary. A distressed Mary rides her bicycle, exclaiming with dramatic flair that this whole ordeal marked the biggest disgrace in her entire life. Mary angrily rounds on Addie, demanding to know if he understood that the fault lay entirely with him, while a smiling Addie dismisses her accusation as exaggerating. Ignoring his pleasantries, Mary walks away with a determined stride, forcing a panicked Addie to desperately call after her and beg her to wait for him. Mary sits alone, coughing gently, reflecting that she had concocted a random, unconvincing reason for her feverish sickness, which was the direct cause of Addie's disproportionate reaction, noting that her head felt too full of thoughts lately. She mentally rails against the situation, clarifying that her ailment was merely a common cold, a fact the doctor confirmed, yet the mansion staff had somehow misinterpreted it as a ridiculous teething fever. Mary's eyes widen in a sudden, sharp realization, causing her to leap to her feet with urgency. She immediately bolts, swiftly moving out of the frame and around a corner with urgent energy. Addie catches up to her, expressing confusion about her sudden rush and kindly urging my lady to cheer up. Mary looks back toward the Corellia Academy grounds in the distance and demands Addie immediately explain what transpired during her absence from school. Addie admits the situation is bad, and as Mary repeats his words, asking what he means, a flurry of motion and a bright wave announce the arrival of Alicia, running energetically toward the pair. Alicia arrives in a rush, breathing a huge sigh of relief, exclaiming that Miss Mary is back to good health, yet Mary coldly observes she still runs with such inelegance and notes how unladylike she appears. Mary scolds Alicia for her ungraceful entrance, stating that her fever finally broke, but Alicia's commoner zeal threatens to make her faint, a greeting Alicia receives with a polite, if nervous, formality. Mary observes to herself that Alicia shows remarkable improvement, yet she retains her prejudice against commoners, finding the sheer embarrassment of seeing someone run in an unsightly manner unbearable. Mary continues her patronizing instruction, stressing that a lady must be elegant at all times and has a tendency to manage urgent affairs, a statement Alicia gratefully receives as a helpful advice she vows to remember. Alicia smiles sweetly, completely misinterpreting Mary's cold greeting as being happy to see her, and politely inquires why Mary was in such a hurry. Alicia shifts her attention to a small, distressed tear on her skirt, a detail she anxiously attempts to conceal from Mary. Concerned, Mary softly asks Alicia if everything is all right. The tense moment is interrupted by the indistinct chatter of students from the surrounding area, drawing Mary's gaze. The chattering students witness a new character, a young man wearing glasses, stomping his foot and loudly proclaiming, "Mary Albert." The new character dramatically calls for an immediate discussion of all the evil deeds Mary has committed to date. The accuser, standing with Patrick and the other student council members, demands an account of the alleged crimes, leading Mary to respond with a bright smile, a polite greeting to the council, and feigned ignorance of the meaning of his charge. The accuser ignores Patrick, who tries to intercede and handle the situation, and points to Miss Alicia as the victim who stands over there, noting that the incidents began on the day Mary stayed home from school. The accuser details the list of outrageous deeds, including torn textbooks, a constantly dirty uniform, and having water suddenly thrown at her, all unbefitting a noble, stating that the student council's collected evidence pointed only to one name. Mary's vision fills with a sudden, all-caps title card, confirming her sinking suspicion that she is currently facing the condemnation event. The accuser, whom Mary perceives as sounding unusually colder than usual, pointedly asks if any of the alleged incidents ring a bell, but Mary simply coughs and excuses herself, claiming she is still recovering from a cold and does not feel well. Mary privately confesses her utter delight, recognizing that this means all the love interests in have their eyes on me, and surely any female student would kill to be in my shoes right now. She compares the scene to the game, recalling that in the original version, Alicia would stand next to Patrick and tearfully accuse her, with the student council members glaring at her as if to protect her. The real Alicia unexpectedly rushes to Mary's defense, fiercely shouting that Miss Mary would never bully me and demanding to know what utter nonsense the accuser is talking about. The accuser and Mary are completely thrown by Alicia's unexpected turn of events, leaving the accuser speechless and Mary internally stunned by the realization that the heroine is on my side. The accuser quickly speculates to Addie that Alicia's defense must be a feint, arguing that Mary's true motive for the bullying is the grudge she bears after her engagement with the president was broken off. The new character gives an intense look, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. Addie intervenes, calmly acknowledging the broken engagement, but reassures Alicia not to feel guilty about it. Mary thinks she understands the general direction of the accusation when the accuser pointedly suggests she routinely engage in behavior unbecoming of a lady, which Mary finds an immensely rude thing to say. The accuser swiftly switches tactics, pointing directly at Addie and demanding, "Wait, me," and asserting that the bullying only started when Mary stayed home, concluding that Addie must have used Mary's absence to act as an agent to arrange the bullying. The panel focuses on the stern, judging faces of the entire lineup of male love interests, their combined stare intensifying the pressure. Addie recoils, letting out a small, strangled URK under the intense scrutiny of the love interests. The accuser recounts information that Addie always stopped by somewhere first after school, proving he did not head straight to the Albert mansion, which Addie admits is true. The accuser insists that Addie merely pretended to go home and then returned to school to arrange the harassment, reasoning that Addie's devotion to his mistress made this troublesome plot believable, a theory Addie completely dismisses. Patrick applies more pressure, urging Addie to abandon his secrets for Mary's sake and confess where he never went home straight to the mansion. Addie internally reveals his great secret. "Miss Mary said she wanted to eat croquettes, so I went to the city to buy some." Mary subtly caresses the hidden food, calling the croquettes her source of nutrients. Patrick looks at the attendant with a soft expression and verifies if that was the true reason you were in a hurry to leave. The accuser vehemently refuses to believe this story, his face contorted in anger as he shouts, "And you expect us to believe that?" Mary simply closes her eyes and sighs, asserting that she speaks the truth, and their belief in it or not is irrelevant. Mary quietly begins to chew on her croquettes, causing the onlookers to chatter in confusion over the concept of that commoner food, a pain Mary silently accepts. The accuser, exasperated by Mary's calmness, demands she give it up and tell us the truth, a reaction Mary had sadly anticipated, thinking, "I knew it would end up like this." Mary observes that the scene mirrors the condemnation event in DDLA, but unlike the game's version, she is genuinely innocent, though she knows her story will be dismissed as a villainous excuse. The accuser confidently declares that since Mary is finally admitting the truth, the student council will decide on her punishment, a statement Mary meets with an indifferent "oh dear." Mary gives a tight-lipped smile, the full weight of the scene causing her to privately confess that this is such a pain. Mary looks up, smiling powerfully with a chilling composure that captivates the attention of the surrounding group. The accuser internally acknowledges that there is no stopping her now, a sentiment shared by others. Mary takes a measured step forward, her voice rising in a commanding tone, clarifying the student council's belief that she bullied Alicia as revenge for stealing Lord Patrick from her. Mary continues her grand summation, noting their assumption that she abandoned her studies for pointless, petty bullying, a conclusion that positions her as the Mary Albert who lost her man to some country girl. Adopting an extremely self-satisfied villainous persona, Mary mockingly repeats their charges, that she is the kind of woman who dirted her uniform or threw water at her, and declares that she, Mary Albert, would never resort to such petty acts. Her tone shifts to one of cold calculation, asking the council if they would like her to. Mary gives a final, chilling smile, clasping her hands and offering to let you experience the Albert family harassment firsthand, which ends the confrontation with a sharp clap. Mary proposes a change in the rules, asking who among the accusers would like to receive the promised harassment first. The entire group flinches at her boldness, and she takes another dramatic step forward, declaring she would be more than happy to show them the meaning of harassment if you prefer. She finishes her theatrical statement with a cold smile and a touch to her chin, saying she'd rather face you all on at once. A sound effect, bim, highlights Addie stepping up, standing shoulder to shoulder with Mary as she realizes that the student council members finally understand who they are dealing with. Mary notices Alicia is pouting and laughing silently, Realizing the country girl has also figured out Mary is merely role-playing as the villainess, and internally scolds Alicia to stifle her laughter more effectively. Patrick interrupts the confrontation, dismissing Mary's grandstanding as a farce but insisting that the fundamental fact still remains. The student council advisor, the adult presence, then interjects, looking sternly at Mary and explaining that, as a teacher, he cannot overlook her habit of routinely engaging in behavior unbecoming of a lady. Mary sharply retorts that his comment is a terrible thing to say, explaining that while she's often called an eccentric girl and won't deny it, she has not caused any trouble for anyone at the school, teachers included. The advisor emphasizes that as a student and a lady of the Albert family, she is expected to have proper self-awareness when conducting herself, noting that her daily actions might lower the dignity of Corellia Academy. Mary absorbs the advisor's words, realizing he essentially confirms the consensus that her usual actions are the problem and that even a teacher thinks she is unladylike. Mary pivots, suggesting two scandalous, mutually exclusive theories to explain her unladylike behavior. Either her father knocked up another woman, meaning she's unrelated to the family, or her mother spread her legs for a different man. She concludes that if so, the Albert family ought to change their family crest to that of a cuckoo bird, a sign of infidelity and a stark warning to the advisor. Mary looks down, observing the spectators and noting that some among them, likely the conspirators, talk behind her back and dare to doubt her lineage. She projects an image of her parents, who are known as the ideal couple among young ladies for their wonderful relationship, arguing that no one at the school doubts her parents' fidelity. A final image showing her parents' deep love and affection reinforces her point. Everyone knows they love their children from the bottom of their hearts, including their famously eccentric daughter Mary. Mary's private thoughts indicate she did not intend to draw out that sort of bewildered, trembling look from the beloved vice president. She wonders if her intense speech finally made them realize how rude they have been to her parents, and begs the vice president's pardon, asking him not to be stabbed by her fans. The vice president gives her a panicked, bewildered look. Mary reflects on the situation, realizing she now looks like the bad guys simply for responding to a fight they picked with her, stating that up until now she'd never let the mockery bother her. In an irritated tone, Mary mentally itemizes her virtues. She admits to some odd behavior unbecoming of a noble, but unlike other students, she has not abused her authority or caused the school trouble, despite knowing a single word from her could cause people to lose their jobs. She further clarifies that her only selfish requests were for additional dishes on the menu, but even that was part of her father's plan to expand their businesses, a plan the Academy partnered with him and gave their approval to. Clenching her hand in silent frustration, Mary continues her internal defense. She is falsely accused and does not deserve this fault-finding, as her unusual actions, such as riding her bike, are done with main concerns for safety and manners. She decides she might as well give them what they want and treat them the way villainous Mary would, fueled by the principle that her pride as an Albert won't forgive their false accusations. Mary smiles coldly, formulating a dark plan, acknowledging that crushing their families is a piece of cake, a shockingly simple task because the crime belongs to the son alone, and they will be disowned to protect the rest of their families. The accuser, the one wearing glasses, lets out a panicked gulp. Mary addresses the group one last time, politely telling them she will take your silence as a sign that we are done here and excusing herself, adding that if the accused family chose to bear the crime together, she would respect that and the Albert family will take in their servants so they wouldn't be left wandering the streets. As she turns away, the accuser pleads with her to please wait, asking if she has anything else to say, but Mary replies she is quite satisfied with the entertaining topic and sees nothing left to discuss. Mary says goodbye to the accusers, walking away and railing against their shallow logic in her mind, listing their hypocrisies. They falsely accused her right after she recovered from a cold and pinned Addie, who brought her daily croquettes to make her feel better, as an accomplice. She casually glances at the ornamental fountain, the very spot where she had been accused, now just a piece of scenery. Mary claps her hands sharply, the sound effect clap, echoing the dramatic conclusion of her speech. Addie, wiping his face in astonishment and relief, exclaims that Mary's performance was splendid and precisely what one would expect from Lady Mary Albert. An unnerving silence falls over the courtyard, with Mary and Addie at the center of the attention. Addie, seriously concerned, immediately suggests she have a cup of tea at the cafeteria, arguing that the frigid atmosphere created by the confrontation will make her sick again, a comment which makes Mary sigh in exasperation. Patrick laughs heartily, haha, seizing the attention when he hears a phrase he can't just ignore, saying the cafeteria ladies were worried and asking, "I asked the rice bowl missy all right?" The other students are left dumbfounded by Patrick's outburst and Mary's subsequent amused laugh, ha, as she turns back to look at them. Alicia, with an utterly horrified look, demands to know how could you do that to Miss Mary, calling Patrick horrible, while the student council advisor criticizes Patrick for cornering a recovering girl with a farce. Mary lightly scolds Patrick, saying he never fail to amuse her, then gently thanks Alicia for her support, but quickly chastises her for letting her pouty glare spur her country girl side. Alicia cries out, remembering Mary's supposed teething fever and how they ambushed her like this, but Mary only glares at Addie, who sheepishly tries to apologize for starting the rumor. Addie panics and frantically attempts to hustle Mary away to the cafeteria so they won't be late for homeroom, but she angrily stops him, asking if spreading that rumor in the mansion wasn't enough for him, declaring that the one who needs condemning here is you. Patrick apologizes for the way the event unfolded, while Mary's face remains stern, and the student council advisor, in a moment of reflection, concedes that the whole farce was hardly helpful as proof. Patrick looks at the advisor, telling him to don't say that. Patrick explains that he felt compelled to prove them wrong no matter what because too many people have the wrong idea about Mary, with some even speculating that he broke off their engagement because he had ran out of patience with her. Mary is pleasantly surprised and thanks him for the finest compliment, calling him sensible enough to realize you let a great catch get away, while Patrick confesses that had he not met Alicia, Mary would have made the best marriage partner for him. Patrick, clearly still fond of her, asks if they could meet again for lunch, perhaps, as Mary smiles softly and bids goodbye, student council, causing Alicia to blush while the accuser murmurs that the pair are simply childhood friends and are very close. The accuser from the student council, now utterly chastened, contorts his face in shame and humbly asks Mary to please forgive us for believing false information and embarrassing you in front of a crowd. The advisor then explains that they were worked up and misunderstood her, concluding that they have both recognized our mistakes and asking Mary if isn't that enough. Mary, with a calm smile, suggests they are all at school because of our immaturity, implying forgiveness, a statement that causes the student council members to flinch. The advisor, now deeply touched by Mary's words, confesses he can't believe there are students in the academy who would want to harm Alicia, as the thought scares him. The advisor assures Mary and Alicia that the student council has an idea who the real culprits are and will not let them go near you and Miss Alicia again, ending the exchange by asking them to continue working hard for the peace of the academy. Later, Addie and Mary sit at a table, where Addie is happily cutting a piece of steak, and Mary, with a subtle look of surprise, notes that Addie's stomach is made of steel after the stressful morning. Mary thinks to herself that the crude remarks and insolence of that level that the student council used are cute compared to someone I know. The cafeteria lady warmly greets Addie, giving him a fresh batch of bread, and then kindly asks Mary, the rice bowl missy, if she'd like some, mentioning she heard Mary came down with a teething fever. The third-year president, Patrick, the third-year treasurer, the glasses accuser, the third-year vice president, the other black-haired accuser, and the second-year secretary, Addie, along with the student council advisor, the physics teacher, who apologizes profusely. Addie interrupts Mary's reading, asking her a question, wanting to know what she would do if she were wrong about something. He then asks his hypothetical question, if the girl is actually fond of him, suggesting he is considering an unlikely possibility. Mary, clutching her head in distress, tells him she is working on the answer, but needs a response that is easy for her to process as Addie gently calls out to her. Addie observes that she appears to have an amiable relationship with the girl, which results in the two of them spending time together at school, but that is also due to him and Lord Patrick being her mutual acquaintances, a statement Mary vehemently denies, claiming she is not even at that stage yet as Addie concludes that she is finally facing reality. Mary tries to argue that the girl is merely her one and only best friend and nothing more, causing Addie to grimace and state that they are undeniably best friends. Addie defends his statement with a simple glance. Mary flies into a rage, yelling that she has been a proper villainess the entire time and has done nothing wrong, proclaiming that the girl is an abnormality and she is definitely not to blame. Sitting down, Mary calms herself and states that it is the girl's fault for not feeling hurt at all, since she makes it a daily habit to hurt her, a sentiment Addie acknowledges. Mary clarifies that a normal person would be hurt or would hate her and keep their distance, so she has been verbally harsher than the game version of her. Mary remembers that the other day the girl came running to her the moment she saw her, and Mary told her straight what she thought of her actions. The girl had exclaimed in wonderment about Mary's doggies, as Mary told her not to come running like an untrained dog, suggesting her family's watchdogs are more intellectual. Addie expresses his uncertainty about what to say, knowing she was making no progress due to her faulty efforts, but not realizing it was this bad, causing Mary to slam her hand on the table, exclaiming that, "That's my line," as Addie assures her not to worry. Mary then realizes Addie is right, telling herself that she can still redeem herself, gaining a determined look on her face. Addie encourages her, saying she can do it, as Mary, filled with conviction, declares she is Mary Albert and must hurt that girl at least once. Mary considers resorting to violence if all else fails, a suggestion Addie immediately rejects. Mary accepts that violence is out of the question and admits her drills are not actually drills, while happily concluding that she will instead pierce the girl with her drills. Addie interrupts her, reminding her that the girl has a date with Patrick in the city tomorrow noon, a fact Mary is surprised he knew. Addie is smiling as he asks if the girl invited Mary again, prompting Mary to look away with a small, "Don't ask." Mary, despite being invited by the girl, reveals that she has concluded the date will be tomorrow and of course she plans to interfere after comparing the game's storyline and their current situation. Mary instructs Addie that they're leaving tomorrow at 8 o'clock and to be prepared, a directive Addie acknowledges. Addie thinks to himself about how he has been letting her do as she pleases, and wonders about the 8 o'clock departure time. They appear in an empty street. Mary declares that the event tomorrow must be the final date event in the game and that she must interfere at all costs. A flashback panel explains that the game, DDLA, features date events that are essential to clear the game and are triggered by random conditions, where the MC and love interest go to the city for casual activities before ending with a conversation, and also warns that tragedy might strike the player if things go poorly. The narrator continues, explaining that the villainous Mary shows up on the last day of the events. Addie asks Mary why they are so early if he thought the date started at noon, and Mary tells him that this is precisely why they are there, to interfere. Addie suggests he should purchase a gift for his father while they are there, perhaps a pen to write a letter of dismissal for a certain someone, before asking if he can sleep inside a cafe because he is tired. Mary accepts his request, stating that since he is full of motivation, a yawn is the last thing she will hear from him and tells him they must get started on their important task. Mary confirms that they will begin the task now. The narrator explains that villainous Mary's pride was hurt by the condemnation event, so she shows up to ruin the intimate date by asking out the love interest in front of the MC to spite her. The narrator continues that the game version of Mary then gets royally dumped, which causes Mary to realize that Addie already knew the events of last time would happen, and she tells him to begin their preparations. Addie suggests they do some shopping first, which Mary smiles at, commenting that she wonders about that. Addie whispers to Mary, reminding her that the topic of their discussion is not something they should discuss in public, even if only a few people are around. Mary gasps but then says, "No," looking serious. Addie asks Mary if something is wrong, and she asks him why they are going shopping. Mary tells him they are shopping anyway, and when Addie asks if there is anything particular she wants, perhaps arranging it like usual, she asks him why else they would be there but to shop, making him wonder why she would trouble herself. The narrator observes Mary as she tells Addie to walk behind her, carrying countless boxes, just as villainous Mary showed up in the game. Addie is seen with a sparkle in his eyes. Addie, looking cheerful, states that he does need a new pen to write a petition of dismissal before yawning and telling Mary he will go sleep in the cafe and asking her to wake him up when Alicia and Lord Patrick arrive. Mary tells Addie that she wants him to carry her boxes just like in the game and asks what could be more impactful than carrying a tower of boxes that easily surpasses his height. Addie, looking tired, follows Mary out of the store, wondering if her plan will really work. The narrator explains that Addie carrying more boxes than he could handle would clearly paint the image of Mary as a selfish and egotistical lady, and that Mary's actions and the outcome are what's important. Mary is then shown carrying nothing, while explaining that she intentionally appears before Alicia to show off the difference in their social statuses, which is why she needs to go on a shopping spree, declaring it to be her plan. Addie is seen sitting at a table with a cup of tea. Addie then says he can't think of anything else to buy after 2 hours of shopping, and Mary tells him he can easily carry the few small boxes with one hand. Addie observes that since Mary is a lady of the Albert family, it is only natural that her desire for material possessions is not easily stimulated because for a person like her, who has personal tailors and can have anything delivered with a single word, that is the norm. Mary argues that she purchased 3 items and has done a wonderful job, asking if he agrees, as Addie sips his tea, observing that 2 out of the 3 could fit in paper bags and 1 item is his, while another customer prepares her tea order. Mary groans, realizing that shopping is hard, and wonders what she wants, as Addie grins, holding up 4 fingers, pointing out that his tea purchase makes 4 items, which is still only a small box. Mary is considering purchasing a pen, as Addie advises against it, saying she would only end up with another small box, but suggests she purchase a considerable amount of ink to record every single insolence a certain someone has done to date, a suggestion that makes Mary contemplate. Mary is now looking at Addie in surprise. Addie grins, laughing at her, and asks if she didn't take what he said about boxes at face value. Addie explains that is why they are not making any progress, and offers a suggestion to Mary since she is at a loss about what to shop for, telling her she has been too focused on the contents and that the boxes are what is important. Mary, looking serious, asks him what they should do then. Addie suggests they just need to buy boxes. The pair appear on the street, with Addie carrying a towering stack of empty boxes, as Mary proudly declares they look like the textbook definition of a lady squandering her money and a servant attending to his mistress. Addie, smiling as he pays the clerk, tells Mary that he made the suggestion, but he won't be able to forget the cold gaze the clerk threw at them. Mary tells him it's fine, arguing that they are respectable customers as long as they paid for their purchases, and that the boxes won't go to waste, telling him to stop with the weird label as Addie puts away the pile of shame he will share with her. Mary looks at the boxes with a dark expression, telling Addie to observe how effective their plan will be. Mary stands with her arms crossed and a stack of boxes behind her as the chapter ends. The afterword, written by Satsuki Tsukasa, begins with an address to the readers, mentioning the transition from the Heisei to the Reiwa era and that to make the manga world more interesting, they have been frequenting butler cafes with Saki-sensei and their editors, as well as checking out imported furniture. The writer continues that they are doing just fine, but they make all sorts of discoveries by having the real items in front of them, mentioning they knew of cabriole legs, and that they make good memories before shouting, cough, and mentioning that they finally have an assistant, and also thanks Saki-sensei and Yukinajiyu. Mary is looking at a letter, wondering how her brothers are doing, as Addie tells her a letter from them arrived yesterday, and she confirms the letter did arrive, adding that all her brother wrote was a short message. The message is simple: we won't forgive Patrick. The narrator explains that the news about the broken engagement has reached her brothers, who are studying overseas, and Addie had to reply to explain what happened, vowing to himself to protect Patrick. The girl, Alicia, comments that Miss Mary and Addie are very close, saying that the attendants she sees at the academy are always behind their masters and mistresses, which makes her think they are special, a sentiment Mary simply acknowledges. Alicia continues, saying that Addie's actions must be the norm. The last page shows a height comparison between Mary at 156 centimeters and Addie at 185 centimeters, with Mary commenting on the overwhelming pressure and telling him to scram, while another pair is shown with the attendant at 180 centimeters, as Addie claims he is still in his growth period. Patrick Dice is currently accompanying his mother, Duchess Dice, to a tea party organized by the Alberts. He is used to the ingratiation and knows he must play his part as an attendee, even if the topic is uninteresting. He notes that if Duchess Albert compliments the tea, the others praise her as an epicure, and if his mother admires the flowers, they exclaim about the flowers' natural beauty. Patrick confesses that he is bored and wishes to go on a walk. He supposes Mary Albert is also bored and asks her to look at his drill. Mary, with a subtle smile, asks what it is. Patrick is shocked, wondering which drill she is referring to. Mary points out the front right drill on his hair, and Patrick has an internal realization. Mary exclaims that it is a ladybug attack and not a drill, causing Patrick to choke in surprise. The surrounding adults comment that Mary and Patrick are very close. Mary, with a stern look, asks him why he is asking if she is okay. Patrick then realizes she showed it to Addie earlier, and he asks her why she showed it to him. Patrick is internally screaming in horror that a ladybug drill is not a thing, as a servant enters to bring a new batch of cakes. He then realizes Addie must have run away, which is why he left at a weird time, admitting he is very envious. Patrick quietly breathes out, telling himself he will pretend to listen to what Mary is saying. He is inwardly convulsing with a flash of light as Mary says the ladybug fell off the 8th layer. Patrick internally begs her to give him a break, groaning that this is a spiral of tragedy, as Mary happily asks him to look at her front left drill this time. Mary's drills look perfect to Patrick. The adults watching comment once again that they certainly are very close. Mary is offended by Patrick asking if she releases pheromones that attract ladybugs, claiming she does not release such things as the daughter of the Albert house. Mary tells Patrick they are the same. Mary adds that they are the same for both ladybugs and humans. She concludes that it is better for them to bend than to break. Mary is then shown walking away down a corridor, looking up at a sign that reads, Addie. The opening image shows Mary Albert and her attendant, Addie, standing close together, both sharing a subtle, knowing smile. Addie, carrying a large stack of boxes, is surprised, and sees Alicia and Patrick walking together on the street as Patrick approaches them. Alicia and Patrick smile brightly together while Addie whispers about them being best friends. Alicia runs towards Mary, greeting her and asking if Mary wishes to be called an untrained cur, as a startled Mary shouts at her to stop running. Alicia looks at Addie, who is peering from behind the boxes, and asks if it is him, and Addie cheerfully greets Alicia. Mary arrogantly dismisses the sheer volume of their shopping, saying that it is nothing as Alicia comments that Mary has done quite a lot of shopping. Mary, with a smug expression, then mocks Alicia by saying she supposes that for a commoner who struggles to buy even a single piece of clothing, this is too much to comprehend. Mary dramatically proclaims they are shopping for more. She challenges Alicia to check if her purse can handle shopping like a lady, gloating that they woke up early exactly for this and that it is a huge success, while Alicia looks disheartened and Patrick looks slightly displeased. Alicia wonders why Mary, who loves shopping, will not go shopping with her. Alicia, now annoyed, asks Mary if she is hurt because she always turns down her invitations, so she thought Mary hates shopping. Alicia pouts, refusing to look at Mary. Mary is shocked, thinking to herself that this is an old trick she has used many times before to appeal to someone's affection, so she can tell Alicia is only pretending to be mad and wonders why she is doing it. Mary's hand is held by Alicia. Alicia proposes that they go shopping together next time, saying it is a promise. Addie, who is holding the tower of boxes, giggles, causing Mary to internally stop herself from stomping on him, realizing he will drop the boxes if she does, before turning back to Alicia to say she will see her later. Mary, looking shocked, raises her hand and yells at them to wait. Patrick, walking away, addresses Mary with a formal tone. Mary regains her composure and tells Patrick she has some business with him, causing him to ask what she wants from her. Mary is seen walking away with Patrick as Alicia watches them. Mary claims that the tailor shop Father favors is in the area and that he has been meaning to send Patrick a party suit, suggesting they pay the shop a visit, while she internally chastises herself to get her act together for the important task. Patrick looks surprised as Mary confirms that the visit is just the two of them, and Addie is seen reacting with surprise as he grabs the boxes, which Patrick is very grateful for. Alicia interrupts Patrick's thank you, smilingly suggesting they do the visit another time. Mary is seen inwardly furious, telling the box boy to shut his mouth, but outwardly Patrick declines the offer, saying he knows Mary's father has excellent taste but he will pay a visit another day, which Mary acknowledges. Patrick is appreciative and says he will let his father know, then bids Mary goodbye, with Alicia also saying goodbye to Lady Mary, who is seen looking disappointed. Mary walks toward Addie, who is still holding the tower of boxes, and tells him Patrick rejected her, and Addie asks what just happened. Addie observes that instead of interfering, Mary's conversation was all about the master, saying it was more like she was hoping for something. Mary, with a slight smile, changes the topic and asks Addie if they should go for lunch. At lunch, Mary is enjoying her cake, while Addie muses about the mechanism that determines which ending route the MC gets. Addie elaborates that the date event today is determined by that mechanism. Addie continues, noting that for regular date events, the love interest would compliment the MC's outfit at their meeting place, talk about the city sceneries, and end simply, like an actual date, but wonders about today. He explains that based on patterns, Mary would normally be rejected and leave making snide remarks, but this date is different, as Mary appears to show off her excessive shopping and then invites the love interest. Mary is visibly upset, asking why this is happening since she is Mary the Villainess, as Addie explains that in some cases, the love interest might accept Mary's invitation. Mary angrily declares that this is a different person, complaining that she's the immature, selfish, awful lady who keeps popping out of nowhere, and Addie gives her half of his cake as punishment for going too far, an act she protests, claiming separate stomachs for cakes and croquettes. Mary asks why the love interest would follow the villainess, and Addie states that it is obviously because of low love parameters, noting that even if the love interest entered her route once, he would end up hating her if she becomes infatuated with other men, claiming that's how it is in both games and real life. Mary muses that being loved may feel nice, but maintaining that love is difficult, and Addie asks if he can order a slice of cake. Addie clarifies that choosing Mary does not mean the love interest will end up with her. It only means he reluctantly prioritizes her and ends his date with the MC, and that he only followed her because of her title as an Albert lady, and he points out that Mary was testing whether he would turn down an invitation from the family head. Addie explains that accepting her invitation would only lead to a bad ending, which is one of the 3 bad endings and a branching point, because nobody would follow a girl like her otherwise. The narrator reveals that DDLA is a rated G otome game, so the bad endings have no shady or depressing developments, and a friendzone route is the worst a bad ending could get. For example, in Patrick's bad ending, his words only bore friendship and loyalty to the queen, with no romantic implications, which is easygoing for a bad ending but a bitter experience for a romance game, as the scene shows Patrick saying they graduate today and should both work hard for the kingdom. The narrator states that no matter how low the love parameters, the MC is still fancied and loved, while the Villainess is hated by almost every character. The narrator shows a somber Mary, musing that one feels somewhat sorry for the Villainess, who has gone desperate after her condemnation, though it is not unexpected considering her role. Mary realizes that her family's powerful authority is still worth considering to weigh against the love parameters on a scale, and she must ensure this will lead to the ruin course. Addie points out that since Lord Patrick prioritized Alicia earlier, Mary avoided the bad ending, right? Mary, smiling, observes that Alicia is devoted to Patrick, and Addie asks if the remaining 2 bad endings are also determined by the love parameters. Mary, standing up, says she will let him know the details when the time comes, dismissing it as an issue for another day, and suggests they continue shopping. Mary excitedly tells Addie to come on, let's go, as a weary Addie, still carrying the boxes, tells her to wait. Mary looks pleased, internally thinking, I'm the only one who knows about the mechanism. Addie walks ahead with the boxes and thinks about how embarrassing it is to put on airs and enjoy the behind-the-scenes even though he has nothing to shop for. A composite image shows Mary and Addie continuing their shopping excursion, with Addie carrying even more boxes. Addie, still carrying a huge stack of boxes, addresses Mary. He suggests it is time to head back, and Mary, looking at a bench, agrees that it will do for them to rest. Addie, after setting down the boxes, offers Alicia a seat too. Mary sits down and tells them to enjoy and watch how things will unfold. A crowd immediately gathers on the street, and Addie is startled, wondering what is happening. Mary observes that the entire student council is here and that Patrick is as popular as always. Addie is surprised, realizing what he is seeing. Mary, with a stern expression, looks at Addie and says, "Oh no, you don't." Addie asks if this is one of the remaining branching points that lead to the ending. Alicia, looking uneasy, asks Mary what she is going to do, as Mary, with a confident smirk, tells her that what happens next will determine the outcome. Alicia and Patrick are walking together, smiling happily, with 2 small white dogs at their feet. Alicia, with an uneasy expression, looks at Mary, who asks her what she is going to do. Addie contemplates the situation, lost in thought. Mary confirms that the key character of this event is not the love interest, and that there really is some sort of condition at play. Mary clarifies that the deciding factor would be Alicia herself, specifically her growth, as this was reflected in the game by testing how much she polished herself without regard to romance. And there are 2 actions she can take where the ending changes depending on her choice. Mary explains that without first polishing herself and finding confidence, Alicia would come to the altruistic thought that she has no right to keep Lord Patrick all to herself, suggesting they all have dinner together. Mary comments that this is an altruistic line one would expect from a heroine loved by everyone and that Alicia is the very definition of a good girl. Patrick agrees with Alicia's suggestion, and their date ends right there after their fun dinner party with everyone, possibly with a romantic moment or 2 on the way home, but that is where the relationship ends. Addie, shocked, asks if she means a Mary bad ending, and Mary confirms that this is the ending that awaits her, which is only good, in title and marks the end of their relationship. Mary gives an example where Alicia ascends to the throne but elopes with Patrick because they were unable to overcome their newly reversed social standings, suggesting Alicia renouncing her right to the throne is a possibility too. Another instance of a bad ending would be the pair choosing to support each other as single partners for life after considering their respective standings and influences. Addie tightens his grip on the boxes, thinking that in his previous world, this sort of debatable happiness was immensely supported and deemed the ultimate conclusion by some. Mary observes that the catch in all these endings leaves much to be desired, linking it back to social standing. Addie understands that social standing remains an obstacle to mutual love. Mary accepts that social standing is the central theme of the game and that the dilemma they overcame keeps coming back, calling it a twist of fate, while Addie focuses on the term ultimate conclusion. Mary dismisses such endings as nonsense, saying that as someone personally involved in a situation of that nature, she would never want to deal with it. She asserts that the various endings don't matter to Mary the Villainess, since she will be sent to the northern lands in every route, so the true end, where everyone is happy, is obviously the best outcome. Addie is startled, asking how one reaches the true ending, the best possible ending. Addie realizes that the branching point is the decision that they are faced with now. Mary explains that inviting everyone for dinner leads to a bad ending, which is the very event unfolding before them. Addie realizes that inviting only Lord Patrick must lead to the true ending. Mary's eyes light up with a determined look. Patrick, in the distance, is looking around, wondering where Alicia is. Alicia, in distress, tells Lady Mary that she has nothing to do by herself and asks her to keep her company, confusing Addie, who also wants to know what's happening. Alicia, acting childishly, declares they should leave Lord Patrick and have dinner with the three of them, while a shocked Mary wonders why Alicia is coming their way. Mary is confused, saying that Alicia is leaving out Patrick, but what makes her assume having a meal naturally includes all four of them, and tells Alicia that she is eating at home, while Addie whispers to Mary to control her manners and stop being rude. Mary's face lights up at the mention of croquettes, as Addie points out that Mary is easily swayed. Mary is determined to not let herself be swayed. Mary reminds Alicia that she needs to talk with Lord Patrick about the situation. Alicia is visibly dismayed, and she understands what Mary means. Alicia admits that Mary is right, but she is nervous about approaching Lord Patrick, as Mary, relating to her, says she knows how it feels to be out of place in that circle, urging her to tell him how she feels properly. Alicia is nervous and unsure of how to approach him while the student council members loom behind them, and Mary watches with a slight frown. Mary then harshly tells Alicia to give up and enjoy a sad dinner all by herself. Mary, with a stern expression, then says she will help her. Addie is surprised, but Mary tells him that she wants Alicia to be happy, and Addie replies that of course he does too. Mary smiles and says she wants Alicia to succeed in breaking free from the shackles of social standing, which is why she is going to take her back to where Lord Patrick is. Mary is surprised that Alicia stands up with the help of my lady, and asks who said she could. Mary, shocked, tells Addie she is not moving from this spot, and Addie calmly tells her not to be like that and asks her to start walking. Mary yells at Addie to cut it out and stop pushing her because the boxes will topple over and they will find out they are empty, as Addie continues to push her gently. Mary accuses Addie of steering her towards their direction and asks whose side he is on. Mary screams that people like Addie are called traitors, as Addie declares that, as her ally, he leads Team Support Alicia as captain. Mary looks surprised and tells Addie that he better remember this. Patrick, clearly relieved, greets Alicia, who apologizes as Mary sarcastically greets them all, telling Lord Patrick it would have been her pleasure to accompany them, but she finds it cold that he would go shopping by himself. Patrick looks around, possibly searching for something. Mary tells Alicia they are not done talking yet, calling her rude, as Patrick smiles with relief, seeing Alicia. Patrick, still smiling, looks at Alicia, who has a question mark over her head. Alicia asks if something is wrong. Mary notices Patrick's relief and reminds herself that Patrick is a noble among nobles and the next head of the Dice family, a president of the student council. Mary thinks that Alicia is a commoner and that the piercing stares from the crowd must be painful for her if she is bothered by their social standings. Mary understands that without proper growth and self-confidence, Alicia will end up thinking she is not good enough for him and will hold back her feelings. Mary realizes that the option of dining alone will not be available to Alicia, and with newfound resolve, she calls out to Alicia. Mary calls out to Lord Patrick, asking Alicia to show her the best possible outcome with the choice she is about to make. Mary is surprised by a realization. Alicia, looking at the entire student council crowd, suggests that since everyone is there, they should all have dinner together. Addie looks at Mary with a shocked expression, telling her, "This farce is over," and Mary turns away. Addie attempts to speak, but Mary cuts him off. Patrick, thinking about the best thing to do, tells himself that having dinner with everyone is the best thing to do. Patrick grabs Alicia's hand, thinking that despite knowing this will only trouble her, he truly believes so, but Patrick, holding Alicia's hand, confesses that at least just for now, he wants her all to himself. Alicia is startled and panics, pale with shock as Patrick holds her close. Patrick holds Alicia's hand and excuses them, apologizing to everyone in the surrounding crowd. Patrick explains he made a promise to escort Alicia today. Mary, looking sternly, accepts this, saying that's just how men are when they're head over heels, and tells them to catch up and have dinner some other time. Addie smiles, thinking that Patrick is as happy as the two people involved, wondering what a complete farce this is. A large image of Mary looms behind a smaller image of Alicia, establishing the focus on the Albert family's business. The narrator explains that Corellia Academy is the best educational institution in the entire kingdom, offering education from preschool to university, providing a conducive learning environment, and holding advancement exams, unlike those for commoners where students must work while attending school. However, because the academy solicits funding for operations, poor grades can also be solved by donations, a fact observed by Mary and another girl in a lower frame. As a result, Corellia Academy has become a melting pot of stupid, aristocratic rich kids and brilliant heirs to prestigious families well-versed in both arms and letters, functioning as a miniature social gathering where parents network through their children. There is also the chaotic university department, which is an enhanced version of the high school department, with the notable difference of an exclusive class where wealth holds no bearing on admission and is reserved only for the cream of the crop. Alicia is crying, sobbing that she didn't get into the honors class. Mary observes that 1 year of learning in the high school department is not enough to prepare a country girl for the honors class for the elite, noting that such a class is for future scholars or those aiming to oust their heir siblings, which Patrick confirms is only expected of him as the heir. Patrick is surprised to learn that Addie also passed the admission exam, and Addie replies he did, explaining that he is being permitted to continue his studies as Milady's attendant, arguing that ending up in a different class would defeat the purpose. Mary affirms that she is in the honors class and notes that listening to classmates boast about their academic prowess instead of their family's financial capabilities is much better for her mental health, and Addie agrees she has a point. Patrick then asks Mary if she is sure she is not aiming to be the Albert family's heir. Mary dismisses his question with an indignant HMH. Patrick questions why he would think such a thing, reminding him he has older brothers, while Mary assures him she won't succeed the family headship, as a mental image of her brothers scolding Patrick flashes above him. Patrick clarifies that he was under the impression that she and Addie were planning to wage a war of succession, but notes that for a person of her caliber, age and sex won't be an obstacle, despite the heir usually being the firstborn son. Mary confirms that the thought has never crossed her mind, and Patrick says it is a shame, telling her she can do it if she sets her mind to it, as Addie vehemently yells for him to perish the thought, declaring he is studying only to help the master and has no intention of sabotaging the Albert family. The narrator observes that Lady Mary Albert made some careless mistakes in the graduation exam, ending up as the class salutatorian to avoid delivering the valedictorian speech. Mary smiles as the narrator reveals that Lord Patrick Dice got a perfect score on the graduation exam and will be delivering the valedictorian speech, a fact she confirms to Alicia. Patrick looks concerned, asking Alicia what the matter is, asking if she found that situation funny, as Mary smiles and says she is pleased that he is as excellent as she thought he was, while Patrick grimaces, thinking she is really something. Alicia is smiling happily, saying she is so glad to know she will be able to spend her university life with everyone just like this. Addie looks stunned, thinking that Mary's surprised glance at him confirms her confusion. Mary interrupts their conversation, asking for an excuse because she has another matter to attend to, and Alicia acknowledges this before Mary leaves. Patrick asks Alicia if the lot of paperwork is all for her university admission, and Alicia, smiling, confirms it, saying it won't be easy but she will complete the documents one by one, which Patrick says sounds good. Mary wonders to herself in the empty academy whether the Albert family will really fall into ruin. Mary then tells Addie they must head back to the manor. Mary laments that her plans are not going smoothly, but asserts that her objective has not changed one bit, and that the downfall is supposed to happen at the graduation ceremony when Alicia makes her appearance as the queen. A montage of Alicia smiling happily with various people illustrates her growing popularity. Mary observes that Alicia's fondness of her is evident, and that this is clearly different from the flow of the game. Mary reflects that if the world followed the game, Alicia should be terrified of Mary by this point, while Mary would be harboring humiliation-driven hatred towards Alicia. She notes that their relationship should be ruined beyond repair by this point. Despite their strange relationship, Mary notes that they haven't strayed from the game's storyline either. Mary concludes that although their relationship is developing in the opposite direction to what is portrayed in DDLA, the story stays quite loyal to the plot. She notes that if one ignores the minor details and focuses on the big picture, they are actually following Patrick's route in DDLA, a realization shown over an image of Patrick and Alicia. Mary admits that the world isn't a carbon copy of DDL, even though their occasional exchanges are just like the lines in the game. Mary, with a resigned sigh, says all they can do is wait for the final trial to know whether or not they are following the story. Addie observes that they now have one job left. Mary, with a slight look of anticipation, asks Addie if he means one job left. Mary explains they are tasked with the crucial job of triggering the final mechanism. Mary approaches Alicia, who is struggling with paperwork, and harshly greets her, calling her restlessness disgraceful and saying her status and manners bring shame to Corellia Academy, an insult Alicia happily responds to. Mary holds up a shoe as Addie yells at her that violence is out of the question. Mary, ignoring him, asks Alicia if she has been monopolizing the counter, as Alicia explains she was hoping to submit her documents but was handed items for sealing. Alicia is confused about how to use the regular candle and stamp, and Mary asks what the issue is, noting that Alicia seems unsure of how to use them. Addie quickly realizes that Alicia doesn't practice wax sealing, something she confirms with a perplexed expression, as Mary looks stunned. A commoner is unfamiliar with the practice of wax sealing, an observation Mary whispers, as Alicia happily realizes she has to use these to seal her documents. Mary mockingly explains that with wax sealing, all Alicia has to do is plop, splosh, then thump, and shames her for not knowing something so simple, while Addie panics that Mary is overusing onomatopoeias. Alicia, confused, repeats plop, and asks why she shouldn't just use her own seal stamp. Mary is surprised, and Alicia asks if she means her own seal stamp. Mary aggressively stares at Alicia, asking her if she has a legitimate stamp engraved with her family crest, as Alicia reveals she doesn't own one but Mary insists that she does. Alicia explains she is from an orphanage, so a family crest is not something she would have. Mary is shocked by the revelation, as Addie watches. Alicia says she does have something with a logo on it, although it's a bit worn out. Alicia happily reveals a small pouch, saying her teacher at the orphanage made it. Alicia then rolls out a small object from the pouch. Alicia reveals a seal stamp she always carried as a charm, a ring she had on her when she was left in the care of the orphanage, admitting she had no idea it was a seal stamp. Mary looks at the object in surprise, and Addie is clearly sweating, realizing that the seal stamp belongs to the royal family. Alicia, now determined, confirms the steps. Plop, thump, then splosh, as Mary is interrupted by a school employee, asking if they are done chatting, and Alicia promises she will be quick. Mary, trying to assist, explains the steps, getting them slightly mixed up, causing Addie to tell her her fussiness won't get them anywhere, and he demonstrates the correct method, resulting in a nicely turned out seal, which Alicia admires. Alicia is pleased with the result and thanks the employee for waiting, confirming she is done. The seal on the document is shown, revealing the royal family's crest, causing the onlookers to gasp in surprise. Mary and Addie look on as chaos erupts. Mary is smiling as Addie comments that it is yet another farce. Addie, looking serious, tells Mary to let's go as they leave the academy at night. Mary is later seen at the manor, reading a letter by candlelight. Mary continues reading by the candle. The starry night sky is visible outside the window. Mary is now sitting by the window, resting with a pillow, sighing contentedly. Mary looks up at the ceiling, thinking to herself, soon. A little before Mary and Alicia were born, divination was all the rage among women of noble status. Noble women knew this and used divination as an excuse for luxury, where credibility was secondary, frankly viewing it as a child's game. They would invite fortune tellers to tea parties, decorating their mansions with compatible animals and tailoring dresses with their lucky color of love and compatible animal designs. The fortune tellers would ask what they should tell the noble women, and the most popular one was the Queen's fortune teller, for whom demand was very high, even leading some fortune tellers to work with designers to influence trends and make money, though some of their young female customers were extremely devoted. One noblewoman, looking relaxed, asked the fortune teller to predict what tomorrow's weather would look like, while the fortune teller suggested predicting luck in love or health, or compatible plants. The lady confirmed that she wanted to know the weather again, causing the fortune teller to appear slightly taken aback. The lady smiled and mentioned she was relieved to have learned the weather would be sunny in her 20th session, causing the fortune teller to ask what was said in that past session. The hooded fortune teller smiled triumphantly, stating they guaranteed the royal family's safety as long as they were there, and another noble commented that this was amazing and a jackpot, wanting the fortune teller to read their fortune next time, while the queen's fortune teller humbly accepted the praise. The fortune teller laughed with satisfaction as coins clinked, suggesting a profitable session. The fortune teller mused that the queen was a tight-lipped one who wouldn't divulge any information about the royal family, and then said that their title of sensei was proper since there were no mistakes in their fortune-telling, even though they were a mere fortune teller. The fortune teller advised the queen, addressing her as Your Highness, to receive the king's love for 3 days and 3 nights starting tonight, which would bless her with a wonderful boy, causing the queen to react with a surprised, huh. A blush appeared on the queen's face as she gave a quiet, flustered, "Whyus?" in response to the fortune teller asking if she understood. The fortune teller secretly thought that the queen would view this as a chance to monopolize the busy king, and that it was natural for 2 healthy people their age to have children after 3 nights of physical contact, confirming the queen loved the king despite their political marriage. The fortune teller was pleased, believing their position was now even more secure. An excited voice exclaimed that the baby was finally born and looked like the queen. However, as the king and queen held the baby, it was announced, "It's a girl." The hooded figure reacted with a shocked, "Huh." The fortune teller panicked, shouting that it was a lie, a lie, a lie, and wildly questioning, "Did I miss? Me? What is the meaning of this?" The fortune teller's distress continued, proclaiming, "This can't be happening." Kneeling and clutching their head, the fortune teller realized they saw a boy but a girl was born, concluding that something must have gotten in the way, and realizing it was that girl. The newborn baby slept peacefully in a crib inside the castle. The fortune teller stood over the crib, declaring to the sleeping child, "You are not in my future," before saying, "Bye-bye." A man, surprised, asked if that's why she was kidnapped, and if that was the truth. The woman he was talking to confirmed the disappearance of the princess was the truth, stating that's why the child was living in the countryside. The man, having been forced to peel vegetables, remarked that the room was lively as ever and perfect for a private conversation. The woman continued, explaining that someone was suspicious of the fortune teller's behavior and had secretly placed a seal into the baby's clothes before she was kidnapped. The man asked why Alicia had the seal if that was the case. The woman then showed a picture, which was described as showing the back of a figure with fine vertical curls, like a drill, walking away from a school after finishing school. The man was alarmed by the mention of fine vertical curls, wondering if the hair color was silver, noting the description of strong vertical curls like a drill. The woman explained that she checked her distant relatives and didn't find any fortune tellers with vertical curls in her family, telling him not to worry, and adding that she couldn't tell the color of the hair because the picture was sepia. The woman said she told him all this because she knew he would be very upset if she suddenly brought it up, making the man realize what this meant. The man, Addy, panicked, realizing that hearing about the vertical curls naturally made him suspect his relatives, though the woman thought the punishment of sending Mary to the north alone wouldn't be enough if the kidnapper was a relative. She joked that the game's creators were the real villains for making the curls like a drill, and that she wanted a game-like downfall. The man, Addy, lamented, "Poor Alicia," assuming the royal palace was in an uproar now that the truth was known, and the woman, Mary, said he didn't need to be mean to Alicia and could simply punch a member of the royal family if he wanted to be kicked to the bottom of a cliff, then commented, "Hey, it's hard to get this right." Addy asked why Mary cared if Alicia was in trouble when she kept Alicia's bracelet with her all the time, and Mary scoffed, asking why she should care if Alicia was in trouble and if he thought she wasn't going to help her. Mary, flustered, shouted, "How do you know that?" while Addy grabbed her arm and asked how many years she thought he'd been serving her. Addy calmly explained that he could tell at a glance when she had something in her pocket. Mary begged him not to tell anyone, assuring him she wouldn't tell anyone starting tomorrow, but Addy was shocked, yelling, "It's already too late. Who did you tell?" The woman chuckled, accepting that her servant understood the situation. Mary cried out in distress, realizing the 2 people she didn't want to know the most were Alicia and Lord Patrick. She thought that she couldn't throw away the bracelet Alicia gave her, nor did she feel comfortable leaving it at home, but she didn't want to wear it either, which is why she always hid it in her pockets and didn't want anyone talking about it. Addy, trying to comfort her as she seemed upset, simply stated that she would get her clothes dirty. Mary called Addy a traitor for knowing about the bracelet, and he jokingly responded, "Me?" Then she accused him of being the captain of Alicia's cheer squad, to which he proudly declared he was the captain of the Alicia cheering squad and was on his lady's side, earning him a promotion from Mary's perspective. Mary was stunned into silence at Addy's declaration, while he looked serious and asked if she heard him, calling her, "Madam." Mary's mother burst into the room and ordered Mary to get ready because they were going to the royal palace. Mary was shocked and shouted, "Mother?" Addie wondered aloud what was going on as the group gathered in the room. Mary hesitantly asked her mother what was happening, but her mother simply told her to just get on with it. Mary was confused, wondering why she was going to the palace, while Addie noted his mother's skill and forcefulness. Addie commented on Mary's mother's skill, having heard she had quickly won her husband, who had many romantic interests, and noted that her forcefulness was to be expected. Mary told her mother she would be taking her own carriage, but her mother insisted they were in a hurry and told her to get in the carriage with her. Mary's mother, having successfully gotten her way, looked determined while Mary seemed defeated and said she understood. Inside the carriage, the mother asked why Mary was sitting so far away, but Mary simply smiled and told her not to worry about it. The mother then asked Addie to excuse her. She seemed surprised when Addie politely excused himself, then she asked Mary if they should get going. Addie was standing outside and muttered that he doesn't like carriages. Mary's mother gave him a look as he struggled with the door. Addie, visibly ill, apologized to Mary's mother and explained he knew it was rude but he just couldn't ride in the carriage because the other side of the carriage was too much for him. Mary's mother smiled and asked Mary if she was okay with this, and Mary replied she was fine, but the mother declared she didn't care if Mary was okay with it. Addie begged my lady not to make him ride a carriage with people stuck to the roof, offering to ride a horse or even the roof instead, while Mary told him to switch places since he had a better view of the carriage roof, scoffing about her semicircular canal being protected by an alloy drill and saying she could read a dictionary and not worry about it if she wanted to. Mary's mother suggested they take tea somewhere until the meeting was over, and Mary replied she'd take her own carriage to the flower exhibition, as she'd been taking her time and enjoying the scenery. Mary's mother smiled and said that was just like her. Mary then thought about the woman with the vertical curls and if the situation was real. Mary and Addie had a serious look on their faces. Mary remarked in awe, "That's amazing," noting that no one came to greet them as they stood before a crowd outside the palace. Mary asked her mother what was going on and why she was there too, while her mother told her not to be naughty and said this was happening because the missing princess has been found, which is why school was closed. Addie shouted, "Who? A friend?" and urged Mary to help her friend if she was in trouble. Mary's mother scoffed, saying my lady doesn't have any friends, and Addie immediately corrected her, exclaiming that of course it was about Alicia. The mother reprimanded Addie, telling him not to torment Mary and saying she would make him remember this in the carriage on the way home, while Addie shouted, "I'm sorry." Mary, still looking serious, thought that despite all this fuss, no one cared and they hadn't even noticed them. The narrator observed that since the princess was kidnapped, the royal palace had been trying to keep calm, but the interior had become a chaos of individual desires, a mess that was inevitable, especially as the majesties were deeply shocked at losing their beautiful daughter, their only child since their first, despite their love for each other. Furthermore, some were not happy with the situation, and the rumor that the daughter of the legitimate royal bloodline was entwined with the charming man of the Dice family had become a big topic of conversation, though others rejoiced at the match and saw it as a miracle. Mary, looking out at the crowd, wondered who would be able to make a decisive move in this chaotic situation, especially with their majesties away on a diplomatic mission. Mary felt an immense pressure just standing in front of the door, anticipating what was behind it. They were met by Alicia, and Mary's mother, stunned, began to say, "Mother, this is..." While Alicia happily greeted Mary, who was shocked and thought, "I'm not your friend." Mary's mother, in an attempt to pull her away, suggested they have some tea somewhere until the meeting was over, and Mary agreed, adding that they could rent a room somewhere and rest, causing Addie to shout in alarm, "Madam? Mother?" Addie looked distressed as Mary and her mother stood there. Mary's mother, still trying to pull Mary away, let out a desperate. Mary's mother suddenly started forcefully banging on the large door, while Mary's face showed determination. Addie and Mary were completely shocked as Mary's mother pounded on the door, shouting, "Oh, my God!" The sound of the door shaking loudly was shown. The door opened and the group entered, with people looking at them. They stood before a group of serious-looking men. As Mary passed, someone in the crowd reached out and called out, "Lady Mary." It was Alicia, who tearfully begged, "Please, please stay with me," causing Mary to look shocked and confess that she didn't know what to do because all of a sudden this happened. Alicia, confused and scared by all the talking around her, leaned into Mary, mentioning that the orphanage director hasn't come yet and she doesn't know what's going on, while Addie watched. Alicia was clearly scared by the situation. a dark-haired man named Patrick stood in the room, vehemently shouting, "NOO!" and accusing someone of having a look on their face like they just gained an ally. Alicia, looking distressed, told Mary she had nothing to do with the royal family and wasn't even the heir to the Albert family, declaring she was in no position to be in a place like this. Alicia continued, tearfully saying they claimed she was a princess and that she stole the royal seal, but she didn't even know if she was a princess and others were saying she wasn't. Crying, Alicia begged Mary to believe her, explaining that the teachers at the orphanage told her the seal was a good luck charm and insisting she wouldn't steal it. Mary, observing Alicia's emotional state, noted in her mind that she couldn't mention Alicia's appearance at this point, fearing that if she were to say a word of doubt now, Alicia would easily fall apart, wondering if this powerlessness to speak was part of Alicia's control. Mary recalled that everything was going according to the game, noting Alicia's face looked like the Queen's, possessing the purple eyes inherited by the royal family, and having the royal family's seal that was given to her when she was kidnapped. Mary, thinking deeply, was visibly stressed. Mary inwardly confessed her proof was just from a game she played in her previous life, and she wasn't sure what she should do. She questioned the reliability of her past life's memories, wondering if it was really okay to believe them that much, and if Alicia was truly the princess. Mary concluded that the truth was difficult to discern because she herself was an irregularity compared to the original game's plot. Mary's eyes widened with a realization. Alicia, seeing the change in Mary's expression, addressed her as Lady Mary, while Mary thought that she wasn't obligated to help, yet she held the bracelet Alicia gave her. Mary gripped her own arm and silently told Alicia, "Don't you cry." She looked toward Patrick, mentally cursing him and the villainous young lady on the screen from her previous life, resolving that she didn't care if Alicia was a princess or not, she was just a bumpkin. Mary declared forcefully that she was not obligated to obey Patrick, referring to him as a bumpkin. She turned, spreading her arms wide, telling him not to bring his countryside stench into the sacred parliament room, stating she was who she was and the one who received the bracelet. Mary criticized how pathetic it was that Alicia in front of her right now seemed so helpless. Mary boldly stated to Patrick that it wasn't the princess he fell in love with, but this country girl. Alicia nodded, relieved and tearful, mentioning Patrick's name as well. Mary turned her attention to Patrick, mockingly telling him he was prepared to throw away his family name over this country girl, even if she, Mary, had broken off their engagement, criticizing that he fell in love with Alicia's rustic charm and impudence to intrude into people's territory without permission. Mary scolded Patrick not to show her such a pathetic figure. Patrick apologized for showing such a disgraceful sight and asked Mary to please continue her story. Mary thought to herself that she had lost her temper and now, if Alicia really was the princess, Mary would be sent straight to the execution grounds for disrespect, let alone the north. Addie interjected, saying he would follow her wherever she goes, as he had told her before, causing Mary to ask what he was saying in confusion. Addie, looking determined, reassured Mary that he would follow her, even to the gallows. Mary smiled and called him an idiot, thinking that Addie was of lower status than anyone else in this chamber. The scene calmed down, with the council resuming, and the chaos gradually returned to the room. Mary internally questioned the whole situation, wondering if her mother brought her here and why, wondering if the Supreme Council couldn't simply do a background check on a princess who showed up out of nowhere, or if their own ambitions and desires were getting in the way. The Queen's mother, addressing the council, stated, "If I may," and announced there was something she must tell them about the seal that was under discussion. Mary, shocked, told her to doubly. As the Queen's mother prepared to explain why Alicia had the royal seal and whether it was real or not, confirming Mary's thought that the woman in the picture was the Queen's mother. The Queen's mother confessed that she was the one who gave the young princess the seal that day. She explained that she had been suspicious of the fortune teller for a long time. The Queen's mother continued, explaining that she could feel the hatred in the way the fortune teller looked at the princess, because she was also a mother with a young daughter. She revealed that since then, she had been constantly watching the fortune teller and gave the princess the seal that day just in case something happened to her. The Queen's mother remembered seeing the distraught fortune teller trying to reach for something, shouting, "Wait! No!" Mary thought that the fortune teller wasn't a blood relative but still held on to the hope that there would come a chance for parent and child to meet again someday, and realized the mother was fully aware of the dangers that came with holding the royal seal. One of the council members confirmed the story was true and asked if anyone else could testify, while Mary inwardly groaned that the villain was just an effortless setting. At that moment, the King of Granquil, Cecilio, and the Queen of Granquil, Grace, made their appearance. The king and queen entered the room, with the king apologizing for being late. The king and queen stood before the council members and the group. The queen and Alicia looked at each other. Addie watched the queen and Alicia. Mary's mother asked Mary why she was spacing out and what was wrong, calling her a naughty girl and asking if she was running away, telling her to bring her along if she was, but Mary mumbled that she was running away from reality and that the whole situation was too windy. Mary, seeing the queen and Alicia, realized she was right about the game's plot, but couldn't believe she hadn't noticed sooner, observing that Alicia was a young copy of the queen, wondering what happened to the king's genes. Mary's mother looked seriously at the king and queen. The queen opened her arms and softly said, "Alicia." Alicia looked stunned as the queen's image seemed to merge with a memory of the king and queen holding a baby, all while murmuring the name Alicia. Alicia let out a soft cry of realization. She rushed forward and shouted, "Mother," as she embraced the queen. The king stood nearby, smiling and calling her, "Ah, our little girl." Patrick looked on with a subtle smile. Addie, looking faint and with his hand on his stomach, thought the story was a cliché but also beautiful and exclaimed, "Thank God." Addie worried that Mary had reached her limit, hurting her spirit by thinking about all of this with her extra information from the game that Alicia was the princess, stating he couldn't get into a celebratory mood because he couldn't understand it. Addie comforted Mary, saying the situation would be over soon, and suggested they buy some delicious food on the way home, like croquettes for dinner. Mary, seemingly snapped out of her daze, looked at Addie and quietly said, "Addie, we need to leave," to which he simply replied, "Huh." Mary told Addie she knew what she was talking about, realizing the commotion on the other side of the door was due to so many angry people getting together, and that if the door opened and their majesties introduced Alicia, it would be complete chaos, concluding this was all part of the game's design. Mary's mother, with a large, satisfied smile, declared, "Look at that big smile. It's too late," and was running away, telling Mary she had to give up. Mary, surprised, told her mother she was sorry, but Addie said, "Roger that," and suggested they use this opportunity to get out of here. One of the men in the room watched the scene unfold with a smile. Mary and Addie, looking frantic, shouted, "Now!" as they made their move to escape. Patrick saw them trying to escape and invited Mary to join them for dinner with their majesties, commenting that Alicia would be happy, but Mary told him he was seeing them try to escape and that it was fine. Addie, lying collapsed on the floor and screaming he was going home to have dinner and go to bed because he can't take it anymore, caused Patrick to ask how the two of them worked together, while Mary observed that Patrick had broken Addie even though she still had some composure left. Patrick, ignoring Addie's breakdown, called out to Mary, "Lady Mary." Mary sighed in frustration while Alicia stood there, seemingly oblivious. Mary considered that even for a daughter of the Albert family, a dinner with their majesties was certainly a big deal. Addie, now recovering, confessed he was nervous again thinking about sitting at the same table as both Mary and Patrick, as he'd only had a few dinners in his life, but Mary dismissively replied that "My lady is still fine." Patrick smiled and said, "Mary, you're a good woman." Mary, taken aback, asked Patrick what was with him all of a sudden and if he regretted dumping her, to which he charmingly replied he was thinking of seducing her to become his concubine. Mary scoffed at his answer, telling him he wasn't being honest and was just tired of country girls and wanted to taste something a little different, concluding that even as the Dice family's eldest son he had bad taste to go from a bumpkin to her, finding the whole thing funny. Patrick simply gave a soft chuckle, acknowledging her comment. A group of female students crowded around Patrick, telling him they were sad and wanted to talk to him as Chapter 13 began. Addie stood next to Patrick, admiringly telling him, "That's amazing, Mr. Patrick." Addie observed Mary, noting that the speeches, the former student council president's address, the valedictorian speech, and the presentation of diplomas, meant Patrick would be on stage 3 times, making the graduation ceremony seem like a show starring him. How hilarious, and asked Mary if she was going to laugh she might as well give the speech herself. A different girl handed Patrick a tourist guide to the northern lands, and Patrick confusedly asked what it was. Patrick sighed about the graduation ceremony being overshadowed, but the girl with the guide explained that's exactly why she was giving it to him. Mary's inner monologue revealed that the ceremony was Mary's greatest performance in the game, the final stage where Alicia, who reigns as the princess, would expose Mary's sins and condemn the villainess to hell. Mary felt this was the final stage, and determined she had to prepare her best for her metaphorical chicken rice bowl. Addie observed that Alicia was the princess, noting that even if the story wasn't going exactly according to the game, it wasn't completely different, and he didn't think either Alicia or Patrick would condemn Mary given the current situation. Addie wondered if Mary might be driven off to the far north in a different way and paused in thought, saying, or rather. Addie affirmed that if nothing happened to Mary, he would be heading off to the north himself, stating he would follow her, whether it was to the north or to a chicken rice bowl shop. Addie stated his devotion to Mary, saying that next to her was where he belonged, while a girl mockingly asked if he hadn't given up yet, to which he replied, of course. Addie assured Mary that he could deal with chickens, a statement of resolve and support. Mary found this reassuring and pondered the situation, concluding, in that case. Mary, with a big, smiling gesture, declared she would make him the assistant manager. A decorative image of flowers signaled the official start of the graduation ceremony. The crowd reacted enthusiastically, and Patrick was on stage as Mary and Addie watched. Mary looked on with an intense expression as Addie muttered that it was about time, and called out, my lady. Alicia, wearing a magnificent dress and crown, stood on the stage, facing the student body, ready to begin her address. Alicia was presented in a beautiful formal portrait, wearing an elegant dress and an elaborate crown, but with a serious, thoughtful expression. Mary and Addie sat among the students, observing the spectacle unfolding on the stage. Addie, clearly impressed, called Alicia's movements magnificent and elegant, to which Mary agreed that she was beautiful and that it was pretty well done for an improvised piece of work. Mary sighed and instructed her inner self not to compare her to a bumpkin like that, saying that if she was going to be kicked down, it had to be done right. Mary's inner monologue lamented that this was the end of the line. Alicia introduced herself to the audience, giving her full name as Alicia Granquill, and formally greeting the assembly as she began her speech. Alicia spoke of the difference in social status she had experienced since entering the academy and vowed to improve these bad habits. Alicia, aiming to use Mary's condemnation as a stepping stone for her goal of improvement, called Mary a bumpkin with no manners, likening her to a bad dog for running around boorishly and spilling garbage on the floor. Alicia asked Mary if the condemnation was humiliating, saying she would have resented Alicia for it in Mary's shoes. Alicia concluded her speech, announcing that there was one last person she wanted to talk about and asked Lady Mary Albert to come in front of me, as Mary thought to herself that she wouldn't make any excuses. Mary walked toward the front, with a broad, confident smile, as another girl watched her, surprised by, what a face, and Patrick also watched. Patrick looked on seriously, acknowledging that the finale has already begun and there's no stopping it. Mary's expression was a wicked smile as she looked forward to the confrontation, internally stating she didn't want it to stop. Alicia faced Mary on stage, asking her what she thought of her speech. Mary stood confidently before Alicia, accepting the challenge. Mary's inner voice found the confrontation game-like and exasperating, but recognized that this question was the final lifeline given by the game's Alicia. Mary's inner monologue detailed the logic of the game. Alicia saw Mary as a bad habit, the worst of the aristocracy, who was also a victim who could start over, and if Mary had apologized, Alicia would have forgiven her, but in all routes, Mary refused to admit wrongdoing and was condemned for it, leading Mary to muse, what a compassionate story. Before concluding, however, Mary internally mocked the idea, saying it was a country-smelling idea that a country girl thought of and found it, how laughable. Mary gave a small smile and thanked Alicia very much. Alicia looked very happy, raising her fists in triumph. Mary's follow-up statement about how she was able to think this way, thanks to you, and that she wanted to do my part as a princess without losing who I am, caused Alicia to look shocked and ask Mary to wait a moment. Alicia explained to the audience that when her status changed, Lady Mary had always treated her the same way. Alicia professed her love for Mary, stating she knew Mary would have her back and that because of this, she gained confidence in herself and knew it was okay to be who she is. Alicia then turned to the audience, addressed Mary Albert, and offered to work together to support this country, a proposal that shocked Mary. Mary was spotlighted on stage with Alicia in a moment of public, unexpected alliance, with Patrick looking on. Mary threw her head back and burst into loud, hysterical laughter. Mary's loud laughter caused a commotion, drowning out the applause from the crowd, while Patrick looked dismayed and another man in the back was slumping over. The Grand Academy building was framed outside as Mary let out a sound of distress. Jet. Patrick rushed over, teasing Mary that she finally said, gee, because she had achieved her goal, though Mary insisted she had not achieved her goal, asking, "How can you say I've achieved my goal?" Mary vehemently rejected the suggestion that she had achieved her goal, screaming, "This is totally different," and lamenting that she had thought there would be chickens waiting for me in the north, while Patrick clarified the chickens were not waiting but going to be eaten. Patrick questioned Mary's dissatisfaction, listing the perfect ending of Alicia and Patrick getting engaged, and the Albert family establishing a friendly relationship with the royal family and no longer needing to fear their wrath. Mary was confused by Patrick's statement that the Albert family was now being called a loyal family that supports the royal family, while Mary herself lamented she had worked so hard and questioned, "How did this happen?" Patrick narrated the new beautiful tale. The madam, without fear, sympathized with the queen and entrusted the seal to the princess, and Mary acknowledged Alicia and Patrick's relationship and ended her engagement without knowing of the princess, creating a tear-shedding, recognition-worthy story. Patrick happily declared the new story great and more flowery and convenient than the true end of Didelin, a comment that shocked Mary, who asked, What is that?" Mary wildly shouted at Patrick to at least comfort me a little, because he had been trying to finish me off for a while now, laughing hysterically as she realized all her effort was for nothing, concluding she should give up on the idea of life in the north. Mary was deeply distraught, regretting that she'd worked so hard to lower Patrick's rank in the placement test by getting the top score, hovering between 2nd and 10th place to maintain a solid 5th. Mary wept over her chickens, as Patrick mockingly said that this is what happens when she does all those self-effacing things, while the other girls suggested they get revenge in university, and told Mary to come to university with them for now. Addie gave Mary a beautiful bouquet of roses, saying that anywhere was not so bad if I'm with you, and that it's not only me who feels that way. Alicia, holding a similar bouquet, happily called out, "Lady Mary." Mary, still in the role of the mock villainess, shouted at Alicia not to run around without a good reason, frustrated at having to repeat herself. Mary's beautiful, curly hair billowed as she looked up into the light. Mary's nickname at the beauty salon was the hairdresser killer Golden Drills. Addie enthusiastically greeted Mary at the academy gate, complimenting her by exclaiming her drills are so strong today and were very drillsome. Mary reacted in humorous outrage, asking Addie what drillsome even meant and what he was implying, while he explained that her drills seemed to be winding a bit more today, and he wondered why. Mary's inner thoughts noted that 2 years had passed since she began her undergraduate studies and reluctantly agreed that the drill curls truly bothered her, too. A trio of panels depicted the romantic, shoujo manga-like image of the curly drills of Mary's hair. Mary complained that Addie treats me too much like a child. Mary, with a serious expression, called out to Addie. Mary instructed Addie to please make an appointment to the hairdresser. A cheerful girl with short hair apologized to Mary for the wait and happily promised, "I'm sure it'll go well this time," as Mary said she was looking forward to it. Mary sighed internally, realizing she shouldn't disdain the hairdresser, who was always trying her best to fix her hair, but wondered how many times they had tried, feeling like it was a lost battle. The hairdresser dramatically resolved that she can't give up, imagining the pleas of her fallen comrades, asking her to destroy these drills someday. Mary looked at her long, curly hair, thinking that she was a university student now and maybe should aim for a gentle wavy hairstyle like her mother's. The hairdresser, named me, apologized for the wait, calling Mary Lady Mary, and admitted her heart had already given up on the battle against the drills that inevitably always roll up again, mocking her efforts. Me suddenly announced, "It's done," shocking Mary, who asked, "Already?" To which me replied with a simple, "Yes." Me's face was shown in close-up, anticipating the result of the new style. The close-up continued, showing the smooth, clean finish of the new style. Mary was shown in the chair at the salon, as someone called out, "Lady." Addie burst through the door, exclaiming the process was pointless, and telling Mary, "You should give up already," inviting her to go eat something. Mary gave Addie a cold look as she stepped down from the chair. Mary turned to Addie, showing off her new, softer, gently curled hairstyle and asked, "How do I look?" Addie spat out his drink in shock and asked Mary if she was all right, while Mary blushed and said he didn't need to get so flustered. Addie rambled incoherently, yelling that they needed a doctor for Mary's hair and the new, soft style, and bemoaning that they had to bid farewell to those interactions of her drills which were now swaying with the wind, while Mary jokingly worried that her hair meant it was spring. Me smiled and complimented Mary, calling her Mary-sama, and saying that her hairstyle and outfit fit her very well. Mary thanked me and sadly admitted to herself that it really was a long battle. Mary, filled with renewed confidence, declared that the insolent one now is you. To those who thought no one was capable of defeating those insolent drills, then excitedly said, "Let's go show it OFF to everyone." Me frantically advised, "Mary-sama, you should lay down for a moment," while a servant, the other girl from earlier, asked, "Excuse me, but who are you?" Me, panicking, was questioned by another male servant on why she fell, and if she could move even without your core, while he insisted he was looking for her. Mary was shown with her eyes shadowed over, a sign of her anger at the chaos around her. Addie laughed nervously, telling Mary everyone was just joking with you, and didn't really mean it, as he noticed her anger and asked what was wrong. Mary simply declared, "That's of course." Mary snapped at Addie, asking what he meant by that, and telling him to calm down, threatening to slap a dismissal notice on him right now if he was serious about his previous rude comment, just as a guard was overheard saying, "It hasn't me, he arrived said yet." Mary looked at Addie with a soft expression and clasped his hand, surprising him and making him ask, "My lady?" Mary pulled Addie's hand up, telling him, "I understand how you feel," to which Addie looked shocked. Mary got angry at Addie, asking why he was still going to be like that, and accused him of letting his kindness go away with his now-gone drills, then threatened to slap a dismissal notice on him before she did on the guard because Addie was the first one to make a rude remark, insisting she wouldn't let him escape. Mary asked why her servants were like this, while Addie laughed and she shouted that she would fire you for real. Mary paused, looking out the window, and softly said, Addie leaned in close and quietly asked, "Could I touch your hair?" Addie looked at Mary with a serious, intense expression. Mary's internal thoughts questioned why Addie was asking for permission now, but she told him, "I don't mind it." Addie gently touched a strand of Mary's hair. Mary sighed happily, observing Addie's gentle hand, feeling like he was handling glasswork. Addie looked deeply into Mary's eyes and told her, "It fits you very well." Addie then added, "You look really beautiful." Mary's eyes widened, and she wondered why his words affected her so much. Mary admitted to herself it was embarrassing to be told this, but she gave him a small thanks and said, "I see." Mary reflected that Addie's words have a way of penetrating the heart. Mary looked away, thinking that her solid drills are now gone. Addie smiled, thinking to himself that he'd changed so much and that if Mary were to study in a university in a neighboring country, people wouldn't even notice she was Mary Albert. Mary was angry at Patrick for not telling her he knew about the study abroad slot at the other university, yelling at him, and Alicia got mad, asking Mary, "Why would you go study abroad on your own?" Because there was only one slot and Mary had a lecture she wanted to take. Patrick gave a sharp look, simply stating that he didn't tell her because it would end up like this. Patrick sighed, thinking that he thought the conversation would go a bit better. Alicia angrily pouted at Mary, who was surprised and told Alicia not to give her that pouty look, explaining that the year abroad was a university on the border and didn't take too long to travel to. Mary assured Alicia that she would return often and asked her not to make such a racket about it. Alicia asked why Mary wouldn't just commute from home if it was a day trip, but Mary said, no, that's too much work, and complained that she can't believe you won't be home for an entire year. Mary explained that she didn't want to have to cross the country border every day to go to school. Patrick thought to himself that he'd been feeling a bit like a princess lately and was ready to rethink the situation if it was minor, but the situation had escalated. Patrick admitted to himself that he got carried away and said it. Patrick harshly relented, saying he would allow it if Mary came home right after the lecture and left just in time for the next one on her holidays, which Mary called harsh. Mary yelled at Patrick, asking, "Wait, why do I have to ask for your permission?" while Patrick tried to interrupt and a girl in the background looked surprised. Mary glared at Patrick, starting to ask, why do you? Mary continued, labeling herself with the reputation of a troublesome young lady who needs to bring a servant all the way to school. Patrick calmly explained that Mary had something to learn at her university and he had something to learn there in the other country at Karelia Academy, which Mary affirmed was, "That's right." Mary looked at Patrick and asked, "So you understand what needs to be done, doesn't you?" Patrick grabbed Mary's arm in a moment of frantic passion. Patrick told Mary that he can't believe you're going out of my reach, and asked Mary to at least promise him she won't do anything rash over there. Mary, looking worried, replied that she was feeling unwell just thinking about it. Patrick and Alicia watched as Mary's head dropped, and Alicia said, "Wow." Mary wondered what she should do or reply as she absorbed Patrick's hot stare, admitting to herself that she's been getting weaker to his gaze lately and that it was a shame when Addie was out of tune. Mary simply looked at Patrick and said, "Okay." Mary told Patrick, "Don't worry," assuring him she'll return regularly, noting that since they'd always been together, it was only natural he would worry about her. Patrick loudly said, "I don't see any compromise," and insisted Mary return home via carriage on the first day of her day off and leave at the last minute for the last day of her holiday. Patrick asked what Mary possibly needed to cross the country for, saying the Migratory Bird Bowl store is doing just fine, and questioning why she needed to learn business administration over there. Mary looked away, saying, "We're almost there," to distract him, but Patrick yelled and asked her why she was always like this. Mary paused, adding, "By the way." Mary asked Patrick and Alicia if they had something to say to her. Alicia smiled and told Mary, "That hair fits you very well," but Patrick cut in saying, "Mary, you sure became an adult, and that the change was, nor is it a sign of maturity," while Mary insisted her hair wasn't seasonal growth spurt. Mary turned away in a huff, saying she was a fool to expect anything else and fine, as Patrick jokingly asked if this was its second form, and if it would be fully straight in 2 years' time, which amazed Alicia, who asked, "Wow. So what's next?" Patrick calmed Mary down, telling her, "I doesn't work like that," and that if she got so angry, her hair would roll up again. Addie was shown holding a beautiful bouquet of flowers as he walked down a hallway. Addie looked towards the college building and wondered aloud if the bouquet was a jinx. Mary told Addie that she would pass on the bouquet of flowers that she had received, explaining that the flowers from the Corellia Academy graduation ceremony were traditionally given to a person's loved ones, while Addie, looking distressed, asked if that meant Mary would die a tragic death, and yelled at Mary not to turn a gift into a cursed item. Mary scoffed, saying if it were a cursed item, she wouldn't hesitate to push it on Addie, and then asked what they should do with it now. Mary felt that no matter how much money was put into the bouquet, it was still just a bunch of flowers. Mary then looked wistfully at Addie and admitted that the bouquet actually carried her feelings about her time at school, while Addie quietly acknowledged her feelings. Mary explained that the tradition was romantic, as some people gave the flowers to a friend to confess a crush, while others gave them to a lover as a token of undying love, and this was why they were given to someone you've always loved dearly, which made Addie say, "I see." A group of cheering students surrounded Patrick, while a girl next to Addie, who was looking at the crowd, said, "Patrick? Right?" And Addie lamented that instead of trying to be brave at the last minute during the graduation ceremony, she should have acted sooner. The girl next to Addie agreed, saying Addie had a good argument because you have to act and can't just stare in silence, so why not just pin him down while still at school? Addie looked distraught, telling Mary that the suggestion was not that simple. Mary looked shocked and let out an "hee" as a girl, likely Alicia, suddenly moved past her at incredible speed with a shout of "Mary-sama." Addie stumbled in front of Mary, blocking the path of the approaching girl. Addie, laughing, complimented himself for his nice follow-up for protecting Mary, while Mary furiously asked him what kind of follow-up that was and demanded he tell her what was going on as soon as he found out. The approaching girl, revealed to be Alicia, slowed down, embarrassed, and gasped, while another girl whispered that Alicia had been getting faster and faster lately, and Mary angrily told Addie to focus on guarding his master rather than the country girl's development. Alicia stood before Mary holding a tiny bouquet and excitedly announced, "I've changed my clothes," while Mary looked down coldly and asked how she could help her. Mary sighed and told Alicia that she, I see, but was busy and asked Alicia to just go away. Alicia happily told Mary that they were matching because Mary was also wearing a pink ribbon, then asked Mary if she knew about the jinx about the bouquet, and when Mary asked her to tell her about it, Alicia yelled for everyone to listen to what people say. Alicia, flustered, looked around, thinking about the implications of giving the bouquet to a person that is important to me, while a group of boys behind Mary and Addie cheered that Alicia was so cute and was the reaction of a reasonable girl. The boys tried to forcefully grab the bouquet from Alicia on a count of 3, so she held it tightly with a grip. Alicia was overwhelmed and near tears, told Mary to "Don't worry about me, go give it to Patrick-sama," as Mary internally thought that she would rather throw dirt on Alicia's face and slap her than have to deal with the torn remains of the bouquet. Alicia desperately held onto the flowers, saying that Mary and Patrick were both very important to me, adding that she didn't even want the feeling of the importance, just wanting Mary to receive her thanks, but felt the feeling alone was more than enough for her. Alicia cried out that she can't do that, and lamented that it was not easy being popular, as Mary wondered why Alicia didn't just disperse your bouquet under the authority of the princess. Alicia looked sadly at the ground, thinking that Patrick has already received lots of flowers and that her bouquet would just get buried under all the others, and since she could only give one, she wouldn't do it, while Mary thought Patrick wouldn't do something like that. Mary, smiling wickedly, declared that the situation had become a game to see how many flowers they could put on Patrick and that the trick is to put it on the wrong side of the balance, to make the next person make a mistake, which made Addie say, "What a dirty strategy," and that it made him want to give it a go too. Mary pondered for a moment with an "e," and then exclaimed, "I have a good idea," while Addie looked surprised. Mary told Alicia, "Don't worry, because it wasn't just Patrick's hand that could receive the bouquet," suggesting Alicia could leave it on his bag, to which Alicia asked, "A good idea?" Alicia lamented that she would just put it in his bag anyway, and since she was such a weirdo, she would rather throw dirt on Mary's face and hand the bouquet in person. Mary then told a crying Alicia that there was a special way, and a way to get it to Patrick, and told Alicia not to worry. Mary leaned close to Alicia's ear and whispered the method, "Put it on your mouth." Addie looked on with an expression of shock and disgust, crying "You," as Mary looked forward to Alicia's mouth being used. Alicia happily agreed to the absurd idea, shouting, "Thank you very much. I'm going now," as Addie frantically tried to tell Alicia to calm down and think this through. Alicia stopped, telling Mary, "That's right. There's something I have to tell you." Alicia looked serious and revealed that even though they broke up, Mary and Patrick were once engaged, and then worried about what people would think of Mary giving her advice like that. Mary told Alicia not to worry because it wasn't her fault and just in case Patrick said anything, to answer, "And told me to do this," which made Addie ask Mary why she was trying to make it his fault. Alicia excitedly agreed, yelling, "Yes, Mary-sama. I'm going now," while Addie hopelessly tried to stop her with, "Alicia, and wait. Think it too." Addie gave up, saying Mary should at least bear your master's sins, and asked what he would do if Patrick got mad at him, as Alicia sped away with a FWS of speed. Mary looked at Addie and said she believed in Patrick, assured that he'd be calm and realized she wouldn't tell him to do this. Patrick was shown in the hallway, looking around. Patrick looked shocked and wiped something off his face as the surrounding students looked on, one girl's mouth wide open in disbelief. Patrick wiped his mouth and was clearly mad at Mary, who then laughed that Patrick got mad at me too, and told Addie that he was absolutely right. Mary called out, "E." Mary asked Addie what he was going to do with his bouquet, which Addie said he hadn't decided yet because as a man, he didn't want to put flowers in his room, to which Mary replied he would never be able to purify your hidden stash or your bookshelf with just one bouquet. Addie looked distressed and told Mary, "Don't talk about someone's room as if it were a magic cave," and asked if it's not one. Addie decided he would just make dried flowers, setting his bouquet aside. Addie explained that one of the maids was very good with her hands and could turn the flowers into fancy decorations. Addie explained further that the maid had recently gotten into dried flower decorations and that he'd seen her picking up fallen flowers when he was helping the gardener, which had piqued his curiosity. Mary looked thoughtfully at Addie and said, "Itch." Addie was surprised when Mary turned and asked him to give her mine too. Mary explained that she was going to put it in her room, but it would die soon anyway, so why not do something with it and make it into a decoration? Addie looked unsure, saying, "But it's your bouquet." Mary insisted that she don't really mind, and asked Addie if he was fine with it. Addie looked at Mary and said he would give you mine, and then, unsure, said, "Then." Mary and Addie walked off together as Addie muttered about my bouquet, and Mary called his name. Mary understood and exclaimed, "I see. Then it's an exchange," as Addie hesitantly agreed and also mentioned that there were still many buds left on his, and if it was used as a decoration, it would be around for a while. Addie looked serious and pleaded with Mary not to exchange it with someone else, realizing if she did, she would face a tragic death. Mary confirmed that she would face a tragic death, right, if she exchanged it, and that Addie's bouquet was the one that would last the longest. Mary shouted that she won't give them to anyone. "They are mine. It's all right." Addie smiled and agreed, "Yes, that's right." The two bouquets were shown together, as Addie confirmed that they are yours. Addie looked affectionately down at the bouquets and softly said, My lady. Mary was shown in the other country, studying at her desk. Mary looked out over a beautiful building and confirmed, so that's Elysiana University. Mary, now at the university, was in her dorm and looked excited to study business management. A close-up showed Mary's feet in her new, sensible, heeled boots. The maid who received the flowers, with a new, short hairstyle, stood somberly outside the room. The maid let out a quiet,